It is the hour before dawn, the coolest and bluest hour of the whole turning day, and out here beyond the walls the world has not yet decided to be awake. The road runs pale and straight through flat fields, where the mist is lying low in the hollows like water that forgot to drain away, and the air smells of dew and cut hay and cold stone, and there is no sound at all except, somewhere far off, a dog that barks once and then thinks better of it and goes quiet again. And ahead of you, a long way ahead, where the dark land meets a sky that is not black anymore but is not yet blue, there stands a wall, an enormous low wall of brick running away to the left and away to the right further than the eye can follow, and in that wall there is a single tall arched gate, and above the gate, set in an iron bracket, one small oil lamp is burning. That lamp is the only bright thing in all the world tonight. It is a little warm coin of amber light hung up against the whole cool weight of the dark, steady, patient, not flickering, tended by someone you cannot see, and it has been burning there all night, the way it burns every night, marking the way in for anyone still out on the roads when the light fails, saying, without any words, "Here is the city, here is the way in, you are nearly home." There is no hurry in that lamp, and there is no alarm anywhere in this night. The gate is not barred against you, the road is smooth, the mist is soft, and that little light is simply waiting, the way a candle left in a window waits, expecting you in its own good time. So come and stand here a moment in the blue dark, and before we take a single step toward it, let us set the day down, whatever this day has been, however long it ran, or however heavy it grew. You may put it down now, right here at the edge of the fields. The way a traveller at the end of a long walk slides the pack from his shoulders and lets it rest against the milestone, you do not have to carry it through the gate. It will keep out here perfectly well until morning, and morning is a long, long way off. Let your shoulders come down from wherever they have been holding themselves. Let the pillow take the whole weight of your head, all of it, so that your neck has nothing left to do. Pull the blanket up a little higher if you like, and let your hands lie open and loose, and let your eyes close whenever they wish to, because from here on you do not need them, you only need to listen, and even the listening can go soft, and drift, and come and go as it pleases. Take one slow breath in now, drawing it down deep and easy, and let it go even slower than you drew it, and feel how the letting go is the restful part. Take another, and this time, as it flows out of you, let your jaw come unclenched, and your tongue rest soft behind your teeth, and take one more, the softest of the three, and on the long way out of that one, let everything that was still braced, or waiting or holding on, simply loosen its grip and let go, the way the hand of a sleeping child lets go of the toy it was so sure it needed. Good, that is all that was needed. And before we walk in through that gate, one small thing, the same small thing we do every night, because it is one of the kindest parts of these nights we spend together. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? Whatever roof you are under, whatever hour it has grown to be where you are, leave it below if you feel like it. A town, a country, a coast, just a word or two, like a mark set down on a map. Think of it this way. We are about to walk along the outside of a sleeping city, a city with a very long wall, and all along that wall there are brackets like the one above the gate, waiting for lamps, and every time one of you leaves a mark below, it is as if we hang one more small warm lamp up on that wall, another little coin of amber in the blue, so that by the time we have walked the whole circuit there is a whole necklace of lights strung around the sleeping city, every one of them a person lying quiet in the dark somewhere on the round earth, listening, letting go, keeping the city company through the night. So leave your lamp on the wall if you like, and know that it is hanging there among all the others, and let us walk on toward the gate. Now let me tell you the shape of this night, because it is a little different from the nights we have spent together lately. On some nights we have moved, and moved a very long way. Only the other evening we walked the whole length of the Silk Road, 4,000 miles of it, one slow oasis at a time, and we crossed half the world between the drums of one city and the lamps of another. But tonight we are going to do the opposite thing, and it may be the most restful thing of all. Tonight we are going to stand still. Tonight we choose one single city, and we stay inside it, and we do not go anywhere else at all, and instead of us walking across the world, we let one single day walk past us. We will begin right here, in this dark before the dawn outside the gate, and we will go in with the very first light, and then we will simply let the hours carry us, one by one, from quarter to quarter and district to district, at strolling pace, never hurrying, stopping wherever the light is soft, until the whole long day has flowed past and set us down again in the dark on the far side of it, at midnight, with the city asleep all around us. Morning, midday, the heat of the afternoon, the gold of evening, the lamps at dusk, the deep quiet of the night. The great open square at the heart of the city, the crowded living streets, the vast warm baths, the temples and the quiet monuments, the gardens on the hills, the fountains running on to nobody in the moonlight. We will come to each of them the way you come to a room in a familiar house, gently, in its turn, and none of it will ask anything of you, and none of it will startle you. And if you are asleep long before the day is done, that is not a thing gone wrong, that is the whole and entire point. Because the city will keep, and the day will go on turning without you, patient and unhurried, exactly where you left it. So let me tell you where we are. The city ahead of us, the city with the long brick wall and the one lamp burning above the gate, is Rome, and we have come to it at the very peak and golden noon of its whole long life, in the years when the empire it ruled had grown about as wide and as calm and as sure of itself as it would ever be. The years around the reigns of the emperors Trajan and Hadrian, when a traveller could set out from the sands of Egypt and walk, or sail, and go on walking, all the way to the green hills of Britain, and never once step outside the same great peace, under the same laws, spending the same coins, sheltering at night behind walls raised by the same untiring hands. And all of that enormous world, every road of it, ran inward like the spokes of a wheel toward this one place, this city on the river, so that people said, and it was true enough, that all roads led to Rome. And what those roads led to was the largest thing human beings had ever built. There had never been a city like it, not anywhere, not before. 1 million people lived here, 1 million souls behind this one ring of wall, at a time when a great town in most of the world meant a few thousand, and a truly grand one might hold 50. But here there were 1 million. Packed and stacked and layered together along the river and up and over the hills, more people gathered in one place than the earth had ever gathered before, and more than it would gather again in any single city for the better part of 2,000 years. Rome, say the word soft to yourself as you lie there. It was not built on a plain. This city, it was built on hills, 7 low green hills standing close together in a bend of the river, hills with old names, and the city had grown up and over and between all of them, so that its streets were forever running downhill into a hollow and up again over a shoulder of ground. And from any high place you looked out over a sea of red clay rooftops rising and falling with the land, tile after tile after tile, warm terracotta going away in every direction like ploughed fields made of houses. And through the middle of it all, curling in a wide slow S, ran the river, the Tiber, green and brown and unhurried, sliding under its stone bridges, dividing the great mass of the city on the one bank from the gardens and the lower ground on the other. And on the high places, up above the rooftops, stood the marble white-columned temples with their gilded bronze roofs. And the great halls and monuments, catching the first and the last of the light so that they seemed to float, pale and shining, above the warm red tide of ordinary houses below them. And striding in toward all of this from the hills on the horizon, walking across the countryside on their long rows of arches, came the aqueducts, the tall stone channels that carried the city its water, mile upon mile of archers marching in from the distant springs, patient as a line of camels, bringing down out of the hills the rivers of clean cold water on which the whole million lives depended. And we will follow that water into night, because water is one of the quiet threads that will carry us through this whole day. Water and light and stone and bread and lamplight. 5 soft threads running from this dark hour all the way through to the next, and any one of them alone is enough to lead you down into sleep. Water, first of all, because a city of 1 million people is really a city of water before it is anything else, and this one drank rivers, whole hillside springs carried down day and night without stopping, and let loose to run through hundreds of fountains that never had a tap to turn them off, so that everywhere you go in Rome, in every hour of this day, at the back of every other sound, there is the soft unhurried voice of water falling into stone. And light, the way the light will move across the city as the day turns. Gold on the marble at dawn, and gold on the marble again at dusk. The shaft of it falling through a great round opening at noon, the long amber of the lamps at night. And stone, the pale travertine, and the warm brick, and the worn paving smoothed by 1 million feet, cool in the morning and holding the sun's warmth long after dark. And bread, the plain brown loaves rising all night in the low ovens so the whole city might wake to them. And lamplight, the little flames in their brackets and their clay dishes, the one above the gate ahead of us, and the 10,000 more that will kindle across the hills at dusk. Water, light, stone, bread, lamplight. Hold any one of them loosely in your mind as we walk, and let it carry you, and let the rest simply happen around you. So the lamp is burning above the gate, and it is time to go in. Let us walk the last of the road together, you and I, toward that one warm light, while the sky over the rooftops begins, very slowly, to change. It is still more night than morning as we come up under the wall, and the wall is huge above us now, brick going up and up into the dark, so that the little lamp in its bracket seems small and high and friendly, like a star that has come down to sit on the gate and keep watch. And here, on the road just outside, we meet the last of the night's traffic coming out, and it is worth knowing why it comes out only now, in the dark, because it tells you something restful about this city. By day, inside these walls, no cart is allowed to roll, the streets are far too full of 1 million walking people for the wheels of wagons, and so for the whole of the daylight hours the great city is a city of feet only, of walking and carrying, and all the heavy hauling. All the barrels and beams and building stone and sacks of grain that 1 million people need must be dragged in and out under cover of night, so that the last hours of the dark belong to the ox carts. And here they come now, out through the gate toward us, the night's work finished. A slow line of them creaking home empty, the great patient oxen leaning into their yokes with their breath steaming white in the cold air, the drivers half asleep on the boards with the reins loose in their hands, the tall wooden wheels turning slow and complaining on the stone, that long, low, groaning creak of a wooden axle that is one of the oldest and most peaceful sounds a human being can hear. A sound that says the load is delivered, the work is done, we are going home to sleep. They pass us one by one, the empty carts, rolling out into the misty fields we have just come across, going small behind us, their creak growing fainter, and their going is like a door closing softly on the night, because they are the last of the dark, and behind them, inside the gate, the first of the day is already beginning to stir. And you can smell it before you can see it. Even here, out under the wall on the cold air there comes drifting a smell that every human being alive knows and loves without being taught, the smell of baking bread, warm and yeasty and brown, because all across the sleeping city, down in the low stone rooms beneath the apartment blocks, the bakers have been awake for hours already, awake since the deep middle of the night. And their ovens are lit, and behind the shutters here and there along the inside of the wall you can see, if you look, the low red-orange glow of an oven mouth throwing its warm light out onto a lane, and a shape moving in front of it, sleeves pushed up, arms dusted pale with flour, sliding the long paddle in and out, feeding the fire, so that by the time the 1,000,000 people wake there will be bread for all of them, still warm, and the whole waking of the city rides on that steady orange glow in the dark. The baker's fire, another of our small threads, lit long before dawn, so that no one need wake to an empty morning. And now, as we pass in under the deep arch of the gate itself, out of the open country, and into the first street of the city, with the wall rising into the dark on either side, and the lamp burning above us, and then behind us, the sky does the thing we came to see. It begins to lift. Over the rooftops to the east, over that endless soft country of red tiles, the black of the sky thins and greys, and then, very gently, without any edge you could point to, begins to take on colour, the deepest blue first, a blue like the bottom of the sea, sapphire, spreading up from the roofline, and into that blue, one by one, the last stars let go and fade, not put out, just quietly outshone, dissolving back into the brightening dark. And a bird begins to sing. One single bird, somewhere up on a tiled ridge above us, tries out one clear phrase into the quiet, and stops, and tries it again, and then another answers from further off, and then a third, and the first thin thread of birdsong begins to be woven across the whole waking city, from roof to roof, hill to hill, a loose bright net of small voices greeting a light none of them can see yet, but all of them can feel. And the blue keeps warming. It goes from sapphire to a paler blue, and then, low along the very edge of the world where the sun is still hidden behind the rim of the hills, it begins to flush the softest rose, the tenderest pink, the colour on the inside of a shell, and that rose spreads and deepens and climbs, and touches the underside of the few small clouds that are drifting up there, and turns them coral and then gold, so that the sky becomes a great slow ceiling of colour opening above the sleeping roofs, and down in the streets, where we are, the darkness thins from black to grey to a soft grey gold. And shapes begin to come out of the dark and become themselves. A doorway, a flower pot on a step, a cat sitting on a wall with its tail curled round its feet, watching the light come, the letters carved above a shop, the leaves of a fig tree leaning over a courtyard wall, and the city, all around us, begins, without the least hurry, to wake. Not all at once, never all at once. A city of 1,000,000 people does not wake the way one person wakes. It wakes the way a great forest wakes, in layers, from the edges inward, some parts already stirring while others sleep on. A shutter opens somewhere above us with a wooden clatter, and a face looks out at the sky for a moment and goes back in. A cockerel crows on a rooftop and is answered by 3 more across the valley. Far off, from the direction of the river, comes the faint knock and murmur of the first boats being made ready. Nearer, from a doorway, the scrape and clink of someone raking out cold ashes and laying a new fire. Water begins somewhere to run, the bright chuckling sound of a public fountain that has been running softly all night, suddenly noticed now that there are ears to hear it, the aqueduct water arriving at the end of its long walk down from the hills and pouring out cool into a stone basin on a street corner for whoever comes with a jar. And a door opens somewhere down one of the lanes, and a broom begins its slow patient sweep across a threshold, that soft dry whisper of straw on stone that is one of the first small labours of any morning in any city that has ever been, and a woman's voice, low and easy, calls something to a child, and the child answers, and neither of them is in any hurry. And from a workshop the first single tap of a hammer sounds, once, twice, thoughtful, a coppersmith or a cobbler settling to the day's work, and none of these sounds is loud, and none of them is sharp, and together they weave a soft grey cloth of ordinary morning that lies over the whole waking city. The sound of 1,000,000 people beginning, without alarm, another good day. And still we have not hurried. We have only walked a little way in from the gate and stopped, in a small square where 3 lanes meet, to let the morning come up around us, and it comes the way the tide comes, not with a rush but with a rising, filling the low places first, brimming slowly higher, until the whole city is afloat on it. And then, over the eastern hills, the sun itself comes up. It does not creep. When it comes at last, it comes all at once, the top edge of it breaking clear of the far ridge in a single blaze, and the light it throws is level and low and pure gold, gold poured flat across the whole city from the east. And it strikes first and highest on the marble on the hilltops, so that up there, above the still shadowed streets, the columns and the pediments and the gilded roofs of the great temples flare into sudden fire, blazing gold and white against the last of the blue, catching the day before anyone below them, and then the gold comes down, spilling lower as the sun lifts, running down the hillsides, gilding the upper stories of the tall apartment blocks, and the tops of the umbrella pines and the cypresses standing. Black and green against the brightness, sliding lower still until it reaches down into the streets themselves, and lays long golden bars of light across the paving stones, and the mist that lay in the hollows all night turns to gold vapour and lifts and thins and vanishes, and every window facing east becomes for a moment a small square of flame, and the whole enormous city, all 7 hills of it, the million souls and the red roofs and the marble and the river and the walls, stands washed and shining and new in the first full gold of the morning, warm now, waking, unhurried, enormous and utterly at peace. Dawn has broken over Rome. And there is nowhere in all the waking world you have to be, and nothing in all the waking city you have to do. You have only walked in through the gate at first light, as countless quiet travellers walked in before you. And you may stand here in the gold and the birdsong for as long as you like, or you may already be drifting, and either is exactly right, because the day is only just beginning, and it is going to be a long, slow, gentle one, and we are going to let all of it walk past us, hour by hour, and there is time, there is so much time, more time than you could ever need. So let the gold settle over the rooftops, and let the birdsong knit itself across the hills, and let the water go on running quietly in the fountains the way it will run all day and all night without stopping, and rest here in the warm beginning of the morning, and drift, traveller, drift, for the city has woken, and it asks nothing of you at all, and the whole of the day is still before us. And so the dawn that we watched come up gold along the ridge lines does not stay up there on the hilltops for long, because light, like water, is always looking for the low places to run down into, and the lowest place in the middle of this city, the great cupped hollow between the hills where the whole life of Rome has gathered itself for 700 years, is the place the road from the gate is quietly carrying us toward now downhill, always gently downhill, at the same unhurried pace we have kept since the wall, and there is no need to look at your feet as you go, because the street does the thinking for you, sloping down between the shuttered fronts of houses that are only beginning to catch the new light along their upper stories while there. Doorways still hold the last blue of the night, and you can simply lean into the slope the way you might lean back into a pillow, letting the small pull of the hill take the weight of walking off your legs, one easy step giving way to the next, the paving stones under your sandals worn round and smooth and cool from 1,000 years of feet, each one fitted to the next like the pieces of something patiently made, so that the road itself feels less like a thing built and more like a thing grown. A dry riverbed of stone that has learned over the centuries exactly how the water of people wants to flow, and you are that water this morning, moving downhill without effort toward the hollow where the city keeps its heart. And then the street bends, and the close walls on either side fall suddenly away, and you come out of the shadow of the lane into the open, and there below you and before you lies the Forum, the low broad valley floor paved in pale worn stone, and ringed all around by columns, and the first thing that happens, before you notice any single building in it, before you can name one temple or one hall, is simply the light, because the sun has just now cleared the roofline of the hills behind you, and is pouring straight down the length of the hollow, low and level and the deep warm colour of honey, so that every upright thing in the whole valley throws a long soft shadow westward across the stones, and the tall white columns stand there catching that first gold along their eastern flanks while, Their western sides are still cool and grey with the leftover night, each pillar lit and shadowed at once, half morning and half dusk, and the pale marble does not glare, not yet, it only glows, the way a coal glows, warm from within. And you stand for a moment at the top of the little rise where the lane spills into the square, and you let the whole lit hollow of it settle into you slowly. In no hurry at all to walk down into it, because some places are meant to be entered the way you enter warm water, 1 inch at a time. Let yourself come down into it now, then, step by soft step, down the last of the slope, and out onto the level floor of the Forum. And feel how the space opens up all around you as you reach the bottom, how the hills draw back and the sky widens overhead into a great calm bowl of paling blue, and how the sounds of the waking city arrive here not as noise, but as something gentler and further off, gathered and softened by all the open air and all the stone, so that what reaches you is only a low woven murmur, the kind of sound a house makes when everyone in it is awake, but no one is calling out. And into that murmur, threading it, comes the one bright, unmistakable sound that will follow us through this entire day and never once leave us, the sound of running water. Because there are fountains here, fed from the aqueducts that stride in from the far hills on their long rows of arches, and the water runs all day and all night and asks nothing of anyone, spilling in a steady silver rope from a bronze spout into a stone basin worn pale and smooth at its lip, filling and overflowing and running away down a channel in the paving, and that small, ceaseless voice of falling water is the pulse the whole Forum keeps its quiet time to, and you may keep your own breathing to it now if you like. The long pour in, the soft overflow out, in and out, unhurried, while the city warms around you. And now let the eye wander, slowly, the way it wants to on a morning when there is nowhere you have to be, and let it climb the long sides of the valley where the great halls stand, the basilicas, the vast roofed public rooms as long as ships are long, where the law courts of the city do their patient business, and this morning their tall bronze doors are only just being drawn open, the caretakers leaning their whole weight into the pull, the heavy leaves swinging back with a deep slow groan that echoes off in under the high roofs, letting the first light and the first cool air into the long dim naves within, where all day the judges will sit, and the advocates will argue, and men with troubles, and men with money will wait their turn on the worn benches. But none of that has begun yet, and for now the great halls simply stand open and empty and full of gold morning air, their rows of inner columns marching away into shadow, their marble floors swept clean and waiting, and there is a particular piece in an enormous room that is not yet being used, a held and generous emptiness, as if the building itself were taking one last slow breath before the day fills it, and you can rest your gaze in that emptiness as long as you please, because it is in no hurry to be filled. Turn, now, gently, and let the light lead you across the open floor toward the smaller shapes that stand out in the middle of the square, the temples and the shrines and the platform, each on its own worn steps, each catching the low sun in its own way, and come first, because it is the warmest and the smallest and the most alive of all of them, to the round one. The little circular temple that stands apart near the centre of things, with a thread of pale smoke rising straight up out of its roof into the still morning air, rising without a waver because there is no wind yet to bend it, a single grey-blue ribbon climbing and thinning away against the brightening sky, and this is the hearth of the whole city, the round house of the fire that is never allowed to go out, and you may come up softly to its low steps and look in through the open door. And there inside, in the cool dim round of it, tending the low fire on its round stone hearth, is a young woman in white, a serene and composed young woman of perhaps 25, her pale face calm and unhurried in the firelight, her dark hair bound up and wrapped about with soft bands of white wool, her long white robe and white veil falling still around her as she kneels. And she is feeding the fire the way you would feed a fire you had tended every dawn of your life, without hurry and without doubt, laying on one small split length of wood and then another, and drawing them together with a bronze rod so the low flames gather and steady and stand up clean and bright, and the whole meaning of her patient kneeling. The thing the city believes without quite saying it aloud is that so long as this one small fire keeps burning, the city keeps living, that the fire on this hearth and the life of Rome are one single flame, and so it is never left alone, never for 1 hour of any night, but watched and fed and kept, hand after hand after hand down the long chain of the years. And there is something in that thought worth carrying with you toward sleep, that somewhere in the middle of the vast dark city a small warm fire is being tended right now by someone calm, and that it will still be burning when the sun comes up, and that you do not have to be the one to watch it, because it is watched, and it is safe, and it will keep. Come away from the little round temple as gently as you came to it, with the thread of smoke still climbing behind you, and let the morning carry you on across the square, past the low-raised platform of stone with its old worn steps, where the speakers stand to address the crowds, empty now in the early light, only a pigeon or two walking its length and picking at the seams of the stone, and past the tall figures of bronze and marble that stand here and there on their plinths all up and down the forum, the statues of the great and the honoured, generals and consuls and old grave men in stone togas, each one raised a little above the height of a living person, so that they seem to watch the square with a mild, changeless patience. And this is the hour that is kindest to them, because the low gold light comes in level and touches their still faces and the folds of their carved robes, and, on the gilded ones, wakes a soft warm shine along a bronze shoulder or the curve of a raised arm, so that for this little while at the day's beginning they do not look cold or grand or far away. They look almost warmed, almost at ease, a quiet standing company of the city's remembered dead, keeping the morning watch over the living, who are only now beginning to move among them. And you can move among them too, unhurried, reading nothing, needing to know none of their names, simply passing between them, as you might pass between trees in a garden at first light, and letting their long westward shadows fall across you one after another and slide away behind. And let the light lead you on a few steps more, past the statues, to where one plain, tall building stands square and solid at the edge of the square, with a broad flight of shallow steps and a set of high bronze doors, a building far less ornamented than the temples around it, sober and grave and almost stern in its plainness. And this is the house where the old council of the city meets, the Senate House, the room in which the grey elders of Rome sit on their long benches and talk, slowly and at great length, about the business of an empire that now reaches from the cold rivers of the north to the hot sands of the south. And this morning its high doors are still shut, and its steps are empty and swept, holding a wedge of long early shadow. And there is no gathering here yet, only the quiet promise of one. And you can let your eye rest on that plain closed front and feel, without needing to think it through, the great patient weight of the thing, that inside those unhurried walls the slow talk that steers half the world will presently begin, and will go on all day, measured and grave and in no hurry, and that none of it, not one word of it, requires your attention tonight, and so you may let the Senate keep its own long counsel and move gently on. And come, before you leave the middle of the square, to the fountains once more, because there are several of them set here and there about the forum, low stone basins, each fed by its own bright thread of water piped down out of the hills. And this water is one of the true wonders of the city, more than the temples, more than the gilded statues, this plain running water. Because it has come to this basin from very far away, gathered from cool springs in the green hills many miles off, and carried the whole distance on the backs of those long striding archers you can see marching in across the country, brought down by nothing but the patient tilt of the channel, falling an inch in every 100 paces, mile after mile after mile, so that it arrives here still cold, still sweet, still moving, and pours out day and night into these worn basins for anyone at all to drink or dip or carry, asking no payment and keeping no account. And in the early morning a few figures come softly to the basins with their jars, an old woman, a slave sent out early, a child rubbing sleep from its eyes, and they hold their vessels under the falling rope of water, and let them fill, and heft them dripping onto a shoulder and pad away home, and the water that is not taken simply overflows the worn lip and runs away down its little channel in the stones to wash the street and feed the drains, and go at last, unhurried, down to the river, and you can stand by one of these basins and watch the bright cord of it fall, and hear it strike the water already in the bowl. That endless soft and hollow cord, and know that it has not stopped, this pouring, all through the night while you are walking in through the gate, and will not stop tonight while you are sleeping, but will go on falling into the dark bowl, hour after hour, whether anyone stands to hear it or not, and there is a deep and simple comfort in that. In water that keeps running for no reason but kindness, and you may carry the sound of it down with you now, the cool, endless falling of it, into the lower rooms of your rest. Now, as you stand there in the middle of the open floor, let the life of the morning begin to gather itself softly around you, not all at once and never as a crowd, but arriving the way the light arrived, gradually, from the edges inward, because the people of the city are waking into the streets now, and the first of them are coming down into the forum on their own quiet errands, and if you stand still and let them move around you, you can watch the oldest daily rhythm of this city begin to turn. Here, coming down the same slope you came down, in ones and twos and small unhurried knots, are men wrapped in the heavy folds of the toga, that great curved sweep of undyed wool draped and gathered over one shoulder and along one arm, the cloth so bulky and so carefully arranged that a man wearing it cannot truly hurry, even if he wishes to, and so they come at the slow, dignified pace the garment forces on them, freshly risen, their faces still soft with sleep, making their way through the cool of the early streets to pay the morning call that the custom of the city asks of them, the dawn visit that each man of lesser means makes to the house of the greater man who is his patron, walking across half the city in the first light to stand a little while in his patron's entrance hall among the other callers, to be seen, to offer his greeting, to ask a small favour, or simply to keep the old thread of loyalty unbroken for one more day, and then to walk away again about his own business. And there is nothing anxious in it this morning, only the settled turning of a thing done every day for lifetimes, the men greeting one another as they pass in the square with an easy lift of the hand, their voices low, their breath faintly clouding in the last of the night's coolness, their sandals scuffing softly on the worn stone, and you can stand among them unseen and unhurried, and simply feel the human warmth of it, hundreds of small courtesies being paid all across the waking city at once, the whole vast place remembering, every single morning, how to be gentle with itself. And around the edges of the square, all along the fronts of the halls and under the shade of the colonnades, the shops are opening now. The small deep booths and stalls tucked in between the great columns, and this is one of the most restful sounds of the whole Roman morning, the sound of the shutters coming down, because a shop here is closed at night by a row of heavy wooden boards slotted one, above the next across its open front, and to open for the day the shopkeeper lifts them out one by one and stacks them aside, and each board comes free with a soft wooden knock and a scrape, and up and down the forum, near and far, you can hear that sound repeating itself unhurriedly out of the shade, knock and scrape, knock and scrape, the whole street of shops stretching itself awake one board at a time, and behind the opened fronts the day's small goods appear, the stacked lamps and the coils of rope, the jars of oil and the little cakes, the cloth and the copperware, laid out by yawning men and women who are in no more hurry than anyone else this morning, sweeping their patch of pavement, sprinkling a little water to lay the dust, propping a shutter to make an awning against the sun that is not yet strong enough to need one, and all of it unfolding at the pace of people who have done this 10,000 times and will do it 10,000 more, and know that the day is long, and that the morning, above all, is not a thing to be rushed, and through it all, threading under the low voices and the knock of the shutters and the scuff of many sandals, runs the smell of the morning, and you can let it reach you now and breathe it in. Because the air of the forum at this hour is a warm and layered thing, and the deepest layer in it, the one that seems to come up out of the very stones, is the smell of bread, because the bakers of the city have been at their ovens since the dark, since long before you walked in through the gate, and now, as their first loaves come up out of the heat, that smell is rolling out of 100 doorways and gathering in the still morning air of the hollow, that plain and ancient and deeply comforting smell of warm bread and wood smoke, and mingled into it comes the smell of the stone itself beginning to warm under the sun, a dry, clean mineral warmth, and the green wet smell of the fountains, and somewhere the faint sweetness of the incense smoke still climbing from the round temple's hearth, and all of it together makes the particular smell of this city waking. Bread and smoke and water and warming stone. And if you have ever come down early into a town that was just beginning its day and felt, for no reason you could name, that everything was going to be all right, then you already know this smell, and you may let it settle you now, low and warm, the smell of a whole city safely and unhurriedly making its breakfast in the light. And so you stand there in the middle of the widening morning, and you simply let it move around you, and there is a great and particular restfulness in being the still point in a place that is gently coming to life, in being the one who has nowhere to go while all around you, softly the day arranges itself, the toga-wrapped men crossing and greeting and passing on, the shutters knocking free one after another, the water pouring and overflowing and running away down its worn channel, the pale smoke climbing straight and thin from the little round temple, the statues warming on their plinths, the great halls standing open to the light, the smell of bread thickening in the air, and no single one of these things asking anything of you at all. None of them needing you to watch, or help, or understand, all of it simply happening, competent and old and sure of itself, the way the tide comes in whether or not anyone is standing on the shore. And you can let your eyes go soft and unfocused now, and let the whole lit and murmuring hollow of the forum blur gently into one warm moving field of gold and stone and pale cloth and rising smoke, and feel how little the great city needs of you this morning, how completely it knows how to look after itself, and how safe a thing it is, therefore, to stand in the middle of it and slowly, softly begin to let go. And while you stand there letting go, the sun goes on doing the quiet work it has been doing since it cleared the hills, climbing, and as it climbs the light in the hollow changes by slow degrees, the long westward shadows drawing gradually in and shortening toward the feet of the columns and the statues that cast them. The honeyed gold of the first light warming and whitening toward the full clear gold of proper morning, the marble of the great halls passing from glow into a clean bright pallor, the last blue coolness lifting out of the low doorways and the corners as the warmth reaches down into them, until there comes a moment, and you can feel it arrive rather than see it, when the sun stands fully up and clear above the eastern roofs, and the whole forum is bright, evenly and warmly bright from end to end, the shadows short and soft, the stone warm now under your sandals where an hour ago it was cool, the day fully and properly begun, and the murmur of the square is a little fuller than it was, a little richer, more voices in it, more feet. The shops all open now along the colonnades, the halls filling with the first business of the courts, the toga-wrapped men gathered here and there in slow-talking knots in the sun, and it is all still calm, still unhurried, but it is fully awake now. The great civic heart of the city up and beating steadily in the light, and there is a natural moment here, standing in that full warm morning brightness, to turn gently and begin to move on, because we have seen the forum wake. We have stood in the middle of the hollow and let the light and the water and the bread and the slow courtesies of the morning gather around us, and now the day is calling us on, up and out of this open ceremonial heart toward the closer, warmer, more crowded streets, where the ordinary work of a million lives is getting under way, and so you take one last unhurried look back across the bright square, at the little thread of smoke still climbing true and steady from the round temple's hearth, at the water still pouring silver from its worn bronze spout, at the great halls standing open and gold, at the still company of statues keeping their patient morning watch, and you let it all go on without you, because it will easily all day, and you turn your face toward the rising streets on the far side of the hollow, where the shutters are knocking open and the workshops are beginning their soft tapping, and the smell of the day is deepening, and you begin, at the same slow and effortless pace you have kept all morning, to climb gently up out of the Forum and away. So we turn our backs on the bright hollow of the Forum, and we let it go on without us, all that gilded and echoing morning business carrying on in the calm distance behind our shoulders, and we begin, without any hurry at all, to climb up out of the low civic heart of the city and into the streets where the people actually live. The way tilts gently upward under our feet, the pale worn paving stones of the great square giving over, block by block, to narrower ground, the marble thinning and the brick thickening. And as we walk, the whole feeling of the city changes around us, the way a room changes when you step from a wide, cool hall into a small, warm kitchen. The columns fall away behind us, the open sky narrows to a bright ribbon overhead, and the houses begin to rise. You feel them before you fully see them, these great blocks of terracotta brick lifting up on either hand, 5 stories, 6 stories, taller than anything you would think mud and fired clay could be asked to stand, leaning their warm reddish walls up into the morning light until the ribbon of sky between their rooftops is a thin bright seam of blue. And the lane you are walking runs shaded and cool along the bottom of them like the floor of a shallow terracotta canyon. This is the Suburra. This is where the million live, most of them, layered floor upon floor upon floor above your head, and there is no need to know a single one of their names to feel the warm ordinary weight of all those lives stacked up together in the brick. Let yourself just walk it slowly. There is nowhere we have to be. The lane bends, because these lanes always bend, following some old line of a footpath from centuries before anyone thought to pave it. And around the soft bend of it the light comes down in one warm slanting bar, where a gap between 2 roofs lets the morning through, and the bar of light lies across the paving and across a doorway and across the shoulder of a man leaning half asleep in that doorway. And then the lane bends again, and the light is gone, and it is all cool shade once more, and this is how it goes, this trading back and forth of warm and cool all the way up. Above you, on every side, the buildings are alive in the gentlest way. Look up, if you like, though there is no need to strain. The small square windows are unshuttered now that the day has come, thrown open one after another up the face of the brick, and out of a good many of them there hangs cloth, washing put out to dry in the first real warmth undyed linen, and here and there a strip of something once dyed a dull red or a soft ochre, all of it hanging limp and heavy in the still morning air, catching the light along its damp folds. There are plants up there too, small ones, herbs mostly, in shallow clay pots wedged onto the sills and the narrow rail of a balcony, a little rosemary, a little basil. Someone's few green things kept alive 4 floors up above a stone street, and the smell of them comes down to you faintly when the air stirs. Green and sharp and clean over the older smell of the stone, somewhere high up a shutter is drawn back on its pivot with a small dry wooden knock, and somewhere higher still a voice calls something soft and unhurried to another voice, not to us, never to us. Just the ordinary talk of a household getting itself going, and the words go past overhead like birds, and you do not need to catch a single one of them. You are only passing through underneath, at the bottom of all this warm, stacked living, and you can let it hold you up the way the ground holds you up, without asking anything of you. The lane widens a little where 2 ways meet, and here, as there is at the meeting of nearly every way in this city, there is water. A public fountain stands at the corner, a low basin of grey stone worn smooth and pale along its lip, by more hands and more jars than anyone could count, and above the basin a short spout, and out of the spout the water comes, thin and bright and endless, falling in one unbroken silver thread that has not stopped falling, day or night, for longer than the oldest person in this street has been alive. That is the thing to hold on to here, if you want something to rest your mind against as you drift. All through this city, all through this day and every day, the water is running. It comes down out of the far green hills, you saw the tall arches of the aqueduct striding in over the country in the first light, and it runs and runs down its long stone channels and its buried pipes into the very heart of the streets, and here it is, at this ordinary corner, pouring itself out, for anyone at all, for nothing, forever. A girl is at the fountain. She is young, perhaps 14, slight, with brown skin and dark hair tied back out of her face with a plain twist of cloth, and she is dressed simply in an undyed linen tunic that falls to her ankles, and she has come with a shallow terracotta jar which she is filling now, holding it under the falling thread of water with both hands, and then, when it is full and heavy, swinging it up in one easy practised motion to balance on her shoulder. She does it without thinking, the way you would do a thing your body has done 10,000 times, and she steadies the jar with one hand and turns and goes back the way she came, up the shaded lane, walking straight backed under the weight of it, and the water she carries will climb 4 flights of dark stone stairs to a room you will never see, to a family drinking and washing and cooking with the hill's cold water carried up on a girl's shoulder, and none of it is any of our concern, and all of it is the quiet miracle of an ordinary morning. And we let her go, and we walk on. And as we go, the life of the great brick blocks keeps leaking gently down to us at the bottom of the lane, a little at a time, the way warmth leaks from a banked fire. From an open ground floor doorway comes the low domestic clatter of a household at its morning, a pot set on a small charcoal brazier, the soft chop of a knife on a board, and out with it drifts the plain good smell of somebody's midday being started early, garlic and oil warming in a pan, a handful of herbs, the same handful, more or less, being warmed in 1,000 little pans up and down the quarter, so that the whole lane takes on faintly the smell of a meal that no one is hurrying to make. A little further on, a very old man sits on a worn stone step in a patch of the found sunlight, his hands folded loose in his lap, his eyes half closed, doing nothing at all in the way that only the very old and the very young know how to do nothing, simply sitting in the warmth and letting the morning pass over him, and you might almost be him, sitting there, so completely is he at rest. Somewhere above, thin and sweet, a child is singing to itself, one of those wandering, tuneless little songs that children sing when they are absorbed in some small game and have forgotten anyone can hear, and the song goes up and comes down and trails off and starts again, and it is the most peaceful sound imaginable, a child perfectly content, 4 floors up, in the warm middle of a city of 1,000,000 souls, and it too falls behind you as the lane bends on. The workshops are open now. You come to know them first by their sounds, because each craft has its own soft sound and the sounds reach you down the lane before the doorways do. There is a tapping, light and quick and patient. Tink, 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 and it is a coppersmith. And when you come level with his open front, you can look in and see him at his low bench in the warm gloom, an older man bent over his work with a small hammer, tapping and tapping the curve of a bowl over a rounded stake, turning it a little between each set of taps so the shape comes up slowly and evenly under his hands, and the finished pieces hang behind him on the wall. Jugs and pans and shallow dishes, all of them catching what little light there is and giving it back in warm reddish glints, and the tapping is not loud, it is the opposite of loud, it is the small steady heartbeat of somebody wholly absorbed in a thing they know how to do, and it fades behind you as you pass, and another sound comes up to meet you. This one is softer still, a rhythmic muffled thump and creak, and it is a weaver, a loom, the tall upright kind with the warp threads hanging down weighted at the bottom with little rings of fired clay, and the weaver, a woman with her sleeves pushed up, is passing the weft across and beating it up snug with a flat wooden blade, thump and separating the threads, creak and passing it back. And the half-made cloth grows downward off the loom a hair's breadth at a time, and you could stand and watch it for an hour and not see it grow, and that is exactly the pace of this whole morning, growth too slow to see, and you drift on past her open door and leave her to it. And there is the potter. Of course there is a potter. There is always a potter, and his sound is no sound at all, only the wet whisper of clay turning, and through his doorway you can just make out the shape of him seated at his wheel, with a great grey mound of clay rising up between his cupped wet hands, rising and narrowing and opening, as if it were doing it by its own soft will and he were only there to keep it company. And the light from a high small window falls down onto the spinning clay and slides. Around and around it, and the finished pots stand in rows outside his door in the lane to dry, dozens of them, plain and round-bellied and honest, waiting to be filled with oil or wine or grain. And the smell of the wet clay is cool and mineral and old, older than the city, the oldest smell there is, and it goes with you a little way up the lane, and then it too is gone. This is the city working, but you must understand it is not working the way you might picture work, all noise and haste and pressing on. It is working the way a slow river works, without seeming to try, each small task turning over into the next, the tapping and the thumping and the turning all going on together up and down the lanes, and the 6-story brick walls holding all the sound in and softening it, so that the whole quarter hums, low and warm and continuous, the way a hive hums, the way a sleeping house hums when everyone in it is breathing, and you are walking through the middle of the hum and it is asking nothing of you, and it is the most restful sound in the world. And now the way opens out again, more than before, and here is something grander come to sit right up against all this humble brick. For the city likes to do that, to set its great works down in the middle of its ordinary streets, and rising ahead of you now in a long sweeping curve is the market hall, tier upon tier of it built up against the flank of the hill, a great half-moon of arched openings climbing the slope in story after story, each arch a shop front, so that the whole hillside has been turned, patiently, brick by brick, into one enormous stack of shelves. You walk up into the lower gallery of it, in under the wide brick vault, and the light comes cool and even through the tall arched openings, and the sound your own soft footsteps make changes, going hollow and gentle under the curved roof. And along the shelves, along the counters, the goods of the whole known world are simply set out in the calm morning light, waiting to be wanted. There are the round dark shapes of amphorae leaning in their wooden racks. Oil and wine come from the far provinces. There are open sacks with their tops rolled down, lentils and chickpeas and beans, dull green and golden brown, and grain. So much grain, poured out in soft heaps you could sink your hand into. There are baskets of the year's fruit, fig split and honey dark, apples, a few late plums with the bloom still on them. There are spices in little heaps that give off their dry warm scent all at once as you pass. Pepper carried the whole enormous length of the world you crossed on other nights. Saffron, cumin. There is cheese in pale wheels and salted fish in jars and honey in sealed pots, and the shopkeepers stand or sit easy behind it all in the cool of the vaults, and there is a little quiet talk of prices, a little weighing on small bronze scales that swing and settle, and it is all so calm, so unpressed, that it is less like a market as you might know one, and more like a great larder. The whole city's larder, kept cool and shaded and orderly under its brick vaults, and you can wander it as slowly as you please, up one gallery and along and down the next, the light falling in bar after bar through the arches, until you have had your fill of looking, and you drift back out of the far end and down toward the streets again. And it is as you come down out of the market, and the way begins to fall gently away under you once more, that you first catch the river. You smell it before the streets give you any sight of it, a new note come into the air, cooler and wider and greener than the warm brick smell of the lanes, a smell of mud and wet stone and weed and open water and threaded all through it, the heavy thick smell of oil and old wood and the tar of boats, and your feet, which have been climbing and winding all morning, find that the way is now leading them downhill, easily, the whole slope of the streets tilting you down toward the water the way water itself would go. And the lanes begin to change again as you go down. The tall, genteel apartment blocks give over to lower, rougher buildings, long and plain and windowless, great sheds of brick standing shoulder to shoulder, and these are the warehouses, the storehouses, where everything the city eats and drinks and burns is stacked and kept, and their wide doors stand open onto the street, and you can see into the cool dark of them as you pass. See the goods stacked away in the gloom, rank on rank of amphorae bedded upright in racks going back further than the light can follow, and the men who work here move in and out of that darkness with sacks on their shoulders, unhurried, sure-footed, and set them down and go back for more, and the whole quarter has the deep-settled calm of a place whose one great business is simply keeping. Holding, storing up against tomorrow, and there is something in that which is very easy to rest against. And then you come round the end of the last long shed, and there, off to the side, rising softly against the bright sky, is the strangest gentle hill you will ever be shown. For it is a hill made entirely of broken jars. It is real. It stands there, a great smooth grassy-topped mound as high as the buildings, and it is built of nothing in the world but the shards of oil jars. Millions upon millions of them. The great rough clay amphorae that carry oil up the river from the far olive country, and that cannot, once emptied, be used again, and so for years upon years upon years they have been carried up here, and broken carefully and stacked, layer on patient layer, sherd upon sherd, until they have made a hill, an actual hill, a whole small mountain of the city's emptied vessels, and grass and a few weeds have found a hold on the top of it now, and gone green in the sun, and you can stand at the foot of it in the warm morning, and simply marvel, quietly, that a thing so vast could be built out of a thing so small and so daily, one poured out jar at a time, and that no one ever meant to build a hill at all, and yet here it stands, and beyond the hill of jars, at last wide and slow and unhurried, is the Tiber. It comes curving through the great city in a long slow bend, broad and green-brown and gleaming, sliding along between its stone banks with hardly a sound, and it is carrying the whole city's morning on its back. Out on the water the barges lie moored along the working wharves, the flat broad river barges that have come up from the seaport down at the river's mouth, up from Ostia where the great grain ships from across the sea unload, and now the grain is coming ashore, the bread of the city, sack after sack of it swung up out of the barges' holds and carried down the gangplanks on the backs of the porters, in a slow steady chain, one man after another, down and along and into the cool dark mouths of the granaries, and back again, the whole patient human river of them moving the whole patient grain river ashore, and none of it hurried, none of it harsh, only that endless calm passing along of the thing from hand to hand to hand that has fed this city every single morning for longer than anyone can remember. And over it all the gulls turn, come up from the sea, wheeling slow and white and easy against the bright sky, and calling now and then in that soft far-off way that sea-birds have, and the water slaps very gently at the stone of the bank and at the wooden hulls, and out in the middle of the stream the river runs on green and silent under the great stone arches of the bridges, bearing the light on its moving skin in 1,000 small slow flakes of gold, going down, always going down, toward the sea it came from. And you can stand here a while at the edge of the water, in the wide cool air off the river, with the hill of broken jars warm at your back, and the barges creaking softly at their moorings, and the porters going up and down, and the gulls turning overhead. And you can feel how the whole morning you have walked has been about this one simple thing carried 1,000 ways, food and water coming into the city, the grain up the river and the water down the hills, the oil in its jars and the fish in its salt and the bread in its ovens, the whole vast machine of 1,000,000 lives revealed to be, at the bottom of it, only this. Only the quiet, endless work of feeding one another and keeping one another, hand to hand, day after day, world without end. And even as you rest there against the railing of the morning, you begin to feel the day tip over its high point. The light has gone from slanting to straight. The bars of shadow that lay long across the lanes have drawn in and shrunk until they are only small dark pools directly beneath the walls, and the sun, when you glance up under your hand, is riding high and white and full at the very top of the sky, straight overhead, and its warmth comes down now, not in slanting bars, but all at once, evenly, heavily. pressing gently down on the shoulders of the whole city. It is midday. And the wonderful thing, the thing this city does that so few great cities of the world have ever done, is that at midday it stops. All morning you have felt the slow warm hum of the work going on, and now, quarter by quarter, lane by lane, the hum begins to fall quiet. Up in the market halls the little bronze scales are set down, and the shelves left to keep themselves in the shade. Down at the wharves the last sack goes ashore, and the porters straighten their backs, and the human chain unlinks and drifts away into the cool of the sheds. In the Suburra, the coppersmith's small patient hammer taps out its last few taps and falls silent, and the loom stops its thump and creak, and the potter's wheel slows and stills, and the wet clay is left round and unfinished under a damp cloth to wait out the heat. The shutters that were thrown open in the morning are drawn half to against the glare. The lanes empty. Doorways that held leaning, watching figures all morning stand quiet and dim, and the whole enormous stacked warm brick city, all its 6-story blocks and its bending lanes and its running fountains and its shaded vaults, settles down into the deep white stillness of the middle of the day, to eat a little, to rest a little, to lie in the shade out of the great weight of the sun, and the only things left moving anywhere are the water, still falling thin and bright and endless, from every corner fountain to nobody at all, and far off, very far off, the slow green river sliding on under its bridges toward the sea. The streets go quiet, the streets go hot, the streets go still, and it is exactly here, in the deep warm hush of the Roman noon, with the whole city lying down out of the sun, that the day begins, so gently you will hardly notice it happen, to lean toward its long soft afternoon. And so the middle of the day comes and goes over the city the way a warm tide comes and goes over a shore, slow and enormous, and without any hurry at all. And while it is at its highest the streets keep the stillness they took on at noon, the shutters half drawn, the workshops quiet. 1,000,000 people leaning back for an hour in the shade of their own doorways, and then, as the sun begins its long lean toward the west, and the fiercest edge comes off the heat, the city stirs again. But it does not stir back into work, because the Romans understood something about the shape of a day that we have half forgotten, that the afternoon is not for labour. The afternoon is for water and warmth, and the slow undoing of the body, and so all across the 7 hills, in the drowsy gold of early afternoon, men and women set down whatever they were holding, and rinse their hands, and take up a small bundle of clean cloth and a little flask of oil, and turn their steps, unhurried, all in the same direction, toward the baths. And tonight we are going to turn our steps that way with them, and I promise you this is the softest hour of the whole long day, so let your body go a little heavier where it lies, because we are walking now toward warm water and steam and the kind of stillness that is made for exactly what you are doing. You can find your way to the great baths without asking anyone, because a whole quarter of the city is quietly flowing the same way you are, not in any crowd, only in a loose, unhurried drift of people. A man with a towel over his shoulder, 2 old friends walking slowly and talking about nothing, a boy carrying his father's oil flask like a small important trust, all of them moving with the loosened, easy walk of people who have finished the harder half of. Their day, and the building they are all walking toward, rises ahead of you long before you reach it, a vast pale mountain of brick and marble set down among the ordinary streets, so large that it seems less like a building than like a piece of landscape, its roof line a long procession of great arches and domes, and as you come up the shallow steps to its doors the noise and heat of the street simply fall away behind you, the way they do when you step in out of weather, and you pass under a high arch into a coolness that has a taste to it, the cool of thick stone and standing water, and the light changes from the flat glare of the street to something softer and dimmer and kinder, filtered down from windows set high overhead, and you feel right there in the doorway. The first loosening in your shoulders, the first sign your body gives that it has understood where it is and what is about to be asked of it, which is nothing. Nothing at all. Only to be warm and clean and at rest. Just inside there is a wide hall floored in patterned marble, cool and echoing and calm, where you leave the outside world behind piece by piece. Your sandals, your outer cloth, whatever coins you carried, all of it handed into the keeping of an attendant and stowed in a little numbered niche in the wall, and there is a small deep pleasure in that emptying of the hands and the shedding of the day's cloth, a feeling every one of these bathers knew and looked forward to, the plain animal relief of putting down everything you were carrying and walking on into the warm unburdened, and the marble under your bare feet is smooth and cool and very slightly damp, worn to a soft shine by 100 years of feet exactly like yours, and every footstep whispers and comes back to you off the high vaulted ceiling, so that the whole hall is full of a low continuous murmur, the murmur of quiet voices and moving water and bare feet on stone, a sound with no edges in it anywhere, a sound like the inside of a shell, and you could fall asleep to that sound alone, and some people, on the warm benches along the walls, very nearly do. From the entrance hall the way opens out into a great courtyard under the open sky, walled all around by shaded colonnades. And this is where the Romans came to loosen the body before they softened it, the exercise yard, and I tell you about it not because there is anything strenuous here for you tonight, but because even the exertion in this place is gentle and drowsy to watch. A few men throwing a small ball back and forth in the sun, with no one keeping score. 2 others wrestling slowly and good-naturedly in a marked square of sand, an old man simply walking the shaded edge of the yard for the pleasure of walking, round and round under the columns, and the sun lies warm and yellow across the sand, and off in one corner a trainer counts something under his breath. And the whole scene has the unhurried looseness of people who are exercising only enough to make the warm water afterward feel earned, and you may stand a moment at the edge of it, in the shade of the colonnade, feeling the warm air move across your skin, and then turn inward, toward the doors that lead into the heart of the building, because the sun and the sand were only the threshold, and the real softness is deeper in. And now you pass out of the daylight and into the warm rooms, and you feel the change before you can name it, because the air itself grows warmer with each step you take, gently by degrees, the way water grows warmer as you wade out from a sun-warmed shallow, and the marble beneath your feet, which was cool in the entrance hall, is warm now, faintly and beautifully warm, warm from underneath. And here is one of the quiet marvels of this whole place, that under this floor, out of sight, beneath your very soles, the stone is raised up on hundreds of small brick pillars to make a hidden hollow, and through that hollow, all afternoon, the slaves who tend the great furnaces send warm air breathing outward from the fires, so that the floor and the walls themselves are gently, evenly, endlessly warm, and you are walking, without ever seeing it, on top of a slow, warm river of moving air. And the whole building holds its heat, the way a stone holds the heat of the sun, long after the sun is gone. And this is the warm room, the room that stands between the cool of the world outside and the deep heat still to come, and it is made to be lingered in, low and vaulted and softly lit, with wide warm benches of marble along the walls where bathers sit and lie and let the heat find them slowly. Sit down here a while with them, on the warm smooth stone, and let the warmth begin its patient work, because it does not rush. This heat, it does not press or pour, it seeps, rising up through the stone into the backs of your legs, moving inward along your spine, easing into the small tired places at the base of your neck and the hinges of your shoulders, and one by one, without your deciding anything, the muscles that have been quietly holding you together all day begin to let go, the jaw first, then the shoulders coming down away from the ears, then the hands opening where they rest. And around you in the warm dimness the other bathers are doing the same. Some sitting with their eyes half closed, some lying full length on the benches with an arm across the face, a few murmuring to one another in voices pitched low to match the room. And no one is doing anything, no one is going anywhere, and the only sounds are the soft drip and trickle of water somewhere close, and the low blurred hum of quiet talk, and, far off through the thick walls, the muffled roar of the furnaces that keep the whole warm miracle breathing. A sound so deep and so steady that it is less a sound than a warmth you can hear, and you feel yourself sinking in the warm room toward the exact place you are trying to reach tonight. And when the warm room has done its slow work and your whole body has gone loose and heavy and willing, you rise and move on. Deeper still, through a doorway hung with warmth like a curtain, into the hottest room of all, and the air here is thick and wet and heavy with steam, so that the far side of the room swims and blurs, and the great arched windows high in the wall are only pale glowing squares of light hanging in a soft white mist, and the heat wraps around you at once, close and total and welcoming, and your breath comes slower and deeper to meet it. And in the centre of this room, wide and low and utterly still, lies a broad shallow pool of hot water, the pale green of a shaded sea, its surface breathing gently, a skin of steam rising off it in slow curling ropes that climb toward the high windows and unravel there in the shafts of afternoon light. And the whole room glows, warm and dim and pearl-coloured, lit from above by those hazy windows, and from below by the warmth breathing up through the floor, so that you seem to stand inside a warm cloud that someone has walled in marble and filled with quiet. Go down into the water slowly, one careful step at a time down the worn marble stair, and feel the heat climb your body as you descend. Over the ankles, up the calves, past the knees, and then the long delicious moment of lowering yourself in all at once, when the hot water closes over your shoulders and takes your whole weight, and you let out the breath you did not know you were holding, and the water holds you, warm and buoyant and complete, and every last knot the day tied in you comes quietly undone in the heat, and you tip your head back against the cool rim of stone and simply float, held by the warm water and the warm air and the warm floor, in a room made of nothing but warmth, and the steam drifts, and the light hangs pale in the high windows, and somewhere near you water is running, always running, feeding the pool from a spout in the wall in a soft, unhurried braid that never stops and never hurries, the same water that came down into the city this morning off the far blue hills along the high stone arches of the aqueducts, running still, running here, running warm now over your shoulders and away, and you can lie in that sound as if it were a hammock, the endless soft pour of it, the trickle and slap of it against the marble lip, and let it carry you. And all around you in the warm haze the small slow rituals of the bath go quietly on, and every one of them is a soothing thing to lie and half listen to. For here is a man being tended by an attendant at the pool's edge, and the attendant pours a little oil, bright and golden, into his cupped palm, and works it slowly over the man's shoulders and back, and then takes up the strigil, the small curved blade of bronze the Romans used in place of soap, and draws it down the skin in long slow strokes to lift away the oil and the sweat and the dust of the day, and the sound it makes is a soft rhythmic scrape, a slow patient stroke and stroke and stroke, and it is one of the oldest and most comforting sounds a tired body can hear, the sound of being tended. The sound of someone else's unhurried hands doing the careful work while you do nothing at all. And near him an old man dozes upright in the shallows with his eyes closed and his mouth gone slack, and two friends stand waist-deep in the far corner murmuring in the low blurred voices the steam gives everyone, and a boy trails his fingers back and forth through the water watching the ropes of steam bend, and no one minds the passing of time, because in this room time is only the slow drift of the steam toward the light, and it has nowhere to be. And think, if a slow warm thought pleases you, of where all this water has been before it came to hold you, because there is a great deal of it, more water than you could easily imagine, running through this one building alone, filling the hot pool and the cool pool and a dozen basins and fountains besides, and it does not come from any well or any bucket, it comes from the hills, from springs and lakes many miles out beyond the city walls, gathered there and sent walking toward Rome along the tops of those long stone bridges you saw striding in over the plain at dawn. Mile after mile after mile, on rows and rows of arches, the water riding inside them the whole way in a covered stone channel, sloping downhill so gently and so patiently that it takes the better part of a day to arrive, moving no faster than a man walks, and it arrives all the same, day and night, year upon year, never stopping, running by its own slow weight into the high tanks of the city, and down through pipes of lead and clay into this very room, into this spout in the wall above you, and so the water braiding warm over your shoulders tonight, set out from a green hillside long before you lay down, and has been quietly on its way to you all along, and will run on out of here when it leaves you, down and away beneath the streets, back at last to the river, and there is something in that endless patient travelling of the water that is very good to rest inside, the sense of a thing that never hurries and never stops, that simply keeps on coming, warm and clear and generous, asking nothing, given freely, more than anyone could ever use. Lie in the warm water as long as you like, because there is no clock in this room and no one is waiting for you, and when at last the heat has soaked all the way down into you, into the deepest and most tired places, and your whole body feels warm and loose, and about half asleep already, then it is time for the one bright shock the bath still holds, and it is a good one, a clean one, the cool plunge, and so you climb the marble stair up out of the hot pool, with the steam pouring off your warm skin into the cooler air, and you walk, loose and drowsy and glowing, into the last great room, and this one is high and open and cool. The coolest and grandest of them all, roofed with enormous crossing vaults far overhead, floored and walled in bright polished marble the colours of honey and cream and deep sea green, and in the middle of it, ringed by shallow steps, lies a wide pool of cool clear water, and after all that heat the sight of it is like the sight of shade on a hot road, and you go down into it, and the cool closes over you, and for one bright breath your whole body wakes, and sings and tingles from. Crown to heel, every nerve suddenly awake and clean and new, the heat rinsed clean away, and it is not a harsh cold, only a cool, a clear reviving cool, and it lasts just long enough to make you feel scrubbed and light and remade, and then you rise out of it, and the warm air of the room wraps you again, and here is the strangest and best gift of the whole sequence, that after the shock of the cool your warm and drowsy body comes back even warmer and even drowsier than before, the way you feel after stepping out of cool water into sun, deeply, gloriously heavy and calm, and ready to lie down, and that is exactly the direction the whole ritual has been carrying you all along, toward lying down. So an attendant meets you as you climb out, and wraps you in a length of soft clean cloth, warm from where it hung near the furnace wall, and rubs you gently dry, and there is again that old animal comfort of being tended, of soft cloth moving over tired skin, of being wrapped up warm the way a child is wrapped after a bath and carried half asleep to bed. And you stand there wrapped and warm and clean and hollowed out and calm, with nothing left in you that is tight or hurried or holding, and the great cool hall echoes softly all around you with the low murmur of voices and the endless run of the water, and the light coming down from the high windows has changed while you were in the steam, gone from the white glare of midday to something longer and softer and more golden, and you realise the afternoon has quietly slid a long way toward evening while the warm water held you, and there is only one place left to go, and it is the gentlest place of all. For beyond the bathing rooms, out through a colonnade, lies a garden, a great walled garden open to the softening sky. And this is where the Romans went when the bathing was done, not home, not yet, but here into the green quiet, to lie down and let the whole long warmth settle, and you walk out into it now on your bare warm feet, and the air is soft and cooling, and smells of water and box hedge and warm stone. And the light is gold, low and level and gold, the deep amber gold of a summer afternoon well past its height, laid in long bars across the grass and the gravel paths between the shadows of the columns. All around the edges of this garden runs a shaded colonnade, a covered walk of tall pale columns, and beneath it, in the deep cool shade, there are benches and couches where bathers lie at their ease, and out in the open the paths run between clipped green hedges and beds of soft-leaved shrubs, and here and there among them stand pale marble statues gone warm and honey-coloured in the low sun, a figure resting on a spear, a girl pouring from a jar that pours forever, and at the very centre of the garden a fountain plays, a wide low basin of marble with water rising and falling in it in a soft continuous plume, catching the gold light as it falls and breaking it into 100 small bright pieces, and the sound of that falling water spreads out across the whole garden and fills it. The same sound that has followed you through every room of this place. The endless soft descent of water into a marble bowl, and it is the sound you are going to fall asleep to. So choose a couch in the shade of the colonnade, one of the long low ones with a bolster at the head, and lie down on it the way the Romans lay down, on your side or on your back with an arm behind your head, and feel how the warm loosened weight of you sinks into it completely, and let the last of the day settle over you like a light blanket, because everything about this moment is arranged, as if on purpose, for the drift into sleep, the warmth still glowing gently in your muscles from the hot pool, the clean scrubbed lightness left behind by the cool one, the soft cloth, the soft couch, the shade, the gold light lying warm on the far side of the garden, the box hedge and the stone breathing out the heat they gathered all day, and everywhere, under everything, the sound of the fountain going on and on and on, and all around you in the golden garden the other bathers are doing the very same thing, and it is a lovely thing to lie among, a whole garden of people at complete rest, some stretched out asleep already, with their chests rising and falling slow, some lying with their eyes open and unfocused watching the swifts turn in the high gold air. 2 old men playing a slow board game on a bench with long comfortable silences between the moves, a slave girl fanning a dozing woman with an unhurried hand, a poet's low voice reading somewhere out of sight, the words gone soft and shapeless before they reach you. And no one hurrying, no one leaving, no one wanting anything more than exactly this. The warm end of a warm afternoon in a cool green garden with the water falling, and you belong here among them, one more warm and quiet body laid down at rest in the long gold light, with nothing left to do and nowhere left to be. Let your eyes go heavy in the shade, and watch, if you watch anything, only the slow things, the plume of the fountain rising and falling, the bars of gold light creeping a little longer across the grass as the sun leans lower, the shadow of a column stretching slowly out toward you across the gravel, the drift of a single swift high up against the deepening blue, and let your breath fall into the rhythm of the water, in with the rising of it, and out with the falling. In and out, slow and full and easy, and feel how far away the morning is now, the gate in the dark and the dawn on the hills and the busy forum and the hot noon streets, all of it hours and hours behind you, all of it carried and set down, and how there is nothing ahead of you either that you need to rise for, nothing the evening is going to ask, only more of this softening gold, this cooling air, this endless gentle water. The light is going long and amber over the whole quarter now, gilding the tops of the columns and the crowns of the far umbrella pines beyond the garden wall, and the heat is finally easing out of the day, and the shadows are reaching, and the great warm building behind you is beginning, very slowly, to breathe out the crowd it drew in at midday. The bathers rising one by one in the cooling light and wandering home loose-limbed and clean toward their evening meals, but you do not have to rise with them, not tonight. You can stay exactly where you are, warm and wrapped and drowsy on your couch in the shade, and let the garden empty gently around you, and let the fountain keep on falling, and let the gold deepen toward the first faint rose of evening in the high sky, because the day is tilting now, at last, out of its long warm heat and down toward the cool and the quiet of dusk, and there is nowhere in all the world you need to be but here, resting, warm, and let go, while the water falls, and falls, and falls into the marble, and the light goes slowly amber, and the great city, out beyond the garden wall, begins to lean toward evening. And when at last you rise from the shaded garden of the baths, you rise the way a warm stone gives up its warmth, slowly, reluctantly, giving nothing back to the effort, and you step out through the tall arched doorway into the open afternoon, and the whole city has tilted while you rested. The light that fell straight and white at midday now comes slantwise and gold. The sun having slid well down the western sky, laying long soft shadows out from every column and every wall, so that the streets are half in honeyed light and half in cool blue shade, and the heat that pressed on the roofs at noon has loosened its hand, and a first faint breath of evening coolness moves along the pavement stones, and this is the loveliest hour Rome has, the golden afternoon, when the marble of the whole city begins, very quietly, to glow. There is nowhere you need to be, and no one waiting for you, and so we will simply walk, the way you might wander a great gallery in the last hour before it closes, when the crowds have thinned, and the rooms have gone still, and the light through the high windows has turned amber, and the walk itself is the whole pleasure. We will go and stand among the mightiest things this city ever raised, its temples and its arenas and its high carved columns, but we will go to them now, in their quiet hour when they are emptiest, so that what you feel standing under them is not noise and not spectacle, but only their enormous calm, the calm of very large stone standing very still in the low warm sun. Let your feet find the pace of it, slower even than a stroll, a drifting, and let your eyes go soft and half-lidded, and let the city carry you. The first of them stands not far from the baths, at the edge of the low flat ground where the river makes its curve, and you come upon it down a colonnaded street. And at the end of the street it's simply as there, low and broad and round and grey, fronted by a deep porch of tall columns so thick that 3 people could not link hands around one, each a single shaft of Egyptian stone brought 4,000 miles by sea and river, and then dragged here on rollers, some of them the soft grey of a dove's wing, and some the warm rose of the desert, and above them a plain triangle of stone, and behind that, set back, the great round drum of the building itself, wearing its dome like a low grey hill of its own making. From outside it does not look like so very much. It is broad and quiet, and does not reach for the sky the way the temples on the high ground do. It keeps its wonder folded inward, the way the mulberry keeps its silk, and you only understand it when you walk in through the tall bronze doors, into the cool round dark, and look up. And when you look up, the whole vast dome opens above you like the inside of the sky, a single unbroken curve of coffered stone climbing up and inward, ring upon ring of sunken square panels growing smaller as they rise, each one deep and shadowed, drawing your eye up the smooth swell of the ceiling toward the very crown. And at the crown, at the highest point of that enormous vault, there is no lamp and no window and no gilded boss. There is only a hole, a single perfect round opening cut clean through the stone and standing open to the air, a round eye looking straight up at heaven, and through it, this late in the day, comes one shaft of gold. That is all the light there is in here, that one round shaft falling from the eye of the dome, a solid seeming column of soft afternoon sun full of slow turning dust, coming down at a long low slant now because the sun is low, and where it lands it makes a bright round disk of gold. And that disk is lying, this hour, high on the curved wall, up among the coffers on the eastern side, glowing there like a second small sun caught inside the building. And here is the gentlest thing you can do in all of Rome, and we will do it now. Together, slowly, we will watch that disk of light move. For it is moving, though you cannot catch it moving. The way you cannot catch the hand of a clock, the sun outside is sinking, and so the shaft leans, and so the round patch of gold slides, without hurry, without sound, down the inside of the great dome, off the coffers and onto the smooth lower wall, creeping across the coloured marble a finger's width at a time. And if you stand very still and breathe very slow and simply keep your eyes on it, you will find after a while that it has moved, that it has crossed from one pilaster to the next, that it has come down a little nearer the floor, and there is no better thing to rest a tired mind upon than this. A spot of warm light crossing a wall so slowly that watching it is almost the same as watching nothing, almost the same as sleeping with your eyes open. The floor beneath you is a great disk of coloured stone, squares and circles of purple and gold and grey, laid in patterns that widen out from the centre, cool and polished, and the round walls hold their niches where the old gods stand in shadow, and the air is that still cool underground cool air that big stone rooms keep even on a warm day. And the sound of the city outside comes in only as a soft blur through the one round eye far above, and every so often, high up, a swift or a swallow flickers across the opening. A quick black stroke against the gold, in and gone, and now and then, on other days, they say the rain comes straight down through that eye in a silver rope and falls onto the patterned floor and runs away through small. Holes cut to take it, but today there is no rain, only the long slow slide of the gold, and you could stand here until dark and feel that no time had passed at all. But the afternoon is turning, and there is more of the city drowsing in this same low light, and so we go back out through the tall bronze doors, blinking, into the warm gold street, and we walk on, unhurried, letting the ordinary streets carry us for a while, past shop fronts closing their shutters against the slanting sun, past a fountain running bright, past a wall where somebody long ago scratched a name and a heart, until the buildings fall back on either side, and the ground opens out and drops away before you into a long broad valley lying between two of the low hills. And this is the greatest open space in all of Rome, the long flat racing ground where the chariots run, and this hour it lies completely empty, and its emptiness is a marvel of its own. Picture it, and let it be large in your mind, because it is very large, a level track of raked golden sand running away from you longer than you can easily throw your gaze. A third of a mile down, and a third of a mile back, curving round a low central spine of stone at the far end and coming back, and all around this enormous oval of sand rise the banked stone seats, tier on tier of them, pale in the low sun, climbing high up the slopes of the hills on either side, seats enough for 250,000 people, more people than most whole kingdoms held. And every one of those seats, this evening, is empty. The great crowd that fills this valley on race days, the roar of them, the colours, the thunder of the hooves, all of that is gone or has not come. And what is left is the thing itself, the pure clean shape of it, the long smooth sweep of raked sand glowing amber, the low stone spine down the middle with its old worshipped stones upon it, the tall gilded post that marks the turn catching the last of the sun, and above it all the empty tiers and the wide gold evening sky, and a few birds walking on the sand, and one man far off with a long rake, unhurried, smoothing the track for a race that will not run until tomorrow, drawing his rake in long straight lines across the gold, and the hiss of it does not even reach you across that distance, and the whole enormous bowl of the place is filled to its brim with quiet. You can stand at the top of the banked seats where the whole valley lies open below you, and let your eye run all the way down the raked sand, and round the far turn, and all the way back, the way you might run your hand down the length of something smooth, and there is a deep and simple pleasure in an empty arena at evening that no full one ever gives. The pleasure of a great made space at rest, holding its shape, waiting, needing nothing from you, and you can let your breath out long and slow, and let the size of it settle you, because things this large make small worries smaller. And when you have looked your fill down the long gold valley, we climb back up out of it, gently, by a curving street, and we come round the shoulder of a hill, and the next of the great stones stands before you, and it is the greatest of them all to look at, the one whose name has outlived every emperor who sat in it, the huge oval arena of pale travertine, 4 tiers high, ring upon ring of open arches climbing one above another into the evening sky, so vast that it seems less a building than a thing of nature, a cliff that men happen to carve into perfect order. And we come to it too, in its quiet hour, when no games are held, when its many mouths stand dark and empty, and the long shadows of the low sun fall in bars across its curving face, and we will do here only what is easy and good to do, which is to stand at its foot and look up and be quietly amazed at the stone, for it is the stone we have come to admire. Only the stone, the astonishing calm geometry of it, arch upon arch upon arch, each row a little different from the row below, the plain sturdy shapes at the bottom, the lighter shapes above, the slim flat pillars at the top, where once a great awning was spread on ropes to shade the seats, and the whole enormous ring of it going warm and golden now on the western side where the sun still touches it and cool blue. Grey on the side already fallen into shadow, so that the building wears the evening the way a hill wears it, gold on one flank and blue on the other. Walk slowly round its base, letting one hand trail, if you like, along the sun-warmed stone, feeling the small pits and the long weathered grain of it under your fingers, and look up through the dark mouths of the lower arches into the shadowed passages within, cool and echoing and empty now, where the birds have gone to roost and are making their small settling sounds up in the high dark, and think, if you think anything at all, only of the patient work of it, the years of hauling and cutting and fitting, the slow raising of ring upon ring, the sheer scale of the wish to build so large, and let the arena be to you tonight exactly what an old cathedral is to a traveller who does not share its faith. Simply a vast and beautiful quiet, made of stone, cooling in the dusk, keeping its own long silence, asking nothing. And close beside the arena, on its own broad base, stands a figure of bronze taller than any figure has a right to be. A colossal statue of a young god crowned with the rays of the sun, so huge that the men who tend it must climb ladders to reach its face. And it too has gone quiet and warm-coloured in the low light, its great calm bronze features turned toward the west, catching the last of the sun full on, so that the vast metal face glows softly rose and gold high up against the darkening sky, gazing out over the rooftops with an expression of enormous unbothered peace, and made things so large and so still that it has become almost a feature of the land. A bronze hill with a quiet face, and you can stand at its feet, no bigger to it than a sparrow, and feel again that smallness that rests rather than troubles. The good smallness of standing among things far larger and far older and far more patient than yourself. Somewhere near, out of sight, a fountain is running, one of the hundreds the aqueducts feed, and its soft continuous trickle threads through the evening quiet. And you realise you have been hearing it for some time without noticing. That steady falling water that is never absent anywhere in this city, day or night. The sound the aqueducts make of the far mountains pouring themselves out, endlessly, gently into stone basins all over Rome. The swifts are wheeling round its upper tiers now in the gold air, screaming faintly high and far, circling and circling the great oval as if it were their own hill, and their small bodies flicker black against the honeyed stone, and the shadow of the whole arena reaches out long across the open ground toward the east, a great dark oval laid down on the earth beside its bright original. And the two of them together, the stone and its shadow, hold the whole warm evening between them. And from here the ground runs level and open, and we walk on across the wide flat fields where the young men of the city come to run and wrestle and ride, the broad training grounds by the river that the city keeps clear of building, and at this hour they too are emptying and going quiet. The last of the runners walking now instead of running, breathing easy, their exercise done, drifting back toward the baths and the streets in twos and threes, and their voices come across the grass low and blurred and companionable, the good tired voices of people at the pleasant end of effort, and the river beyond them runs gold under the low sun, and lines of tall poplars stand along the walks with their long shadows striping the grass, and here and there among the open ground rise the colonnaded walks, the long roofed porticos with their rows of columns where a person may stroll in shade, hundreds of columns marching away in perfect rank, and between them cool paved walks, and gardens set with clipped hedges and old statues and quiet pools, made for exactly this, for the unhurried evening walk of a city at ease. So we walk the porticos a while, in and out of the last bars of sun that fall between the columns. Gold, shadow, gold, shadow. A slow flicker of warmth and cool across your face as you pass each pillar, and the marble underfoot has held the day's heat and gives it up now gently through your soles, and the statues stand along the walk in their old calm poses, an emperor with his hand raised in eternal greeting, a goddess with her drapery frozen mid-fall, a boy pulling a thorn from his foot forever, all of them gone soft and warm-coloured in the low light. Their white marble turned to the colour of honey and cream, and the pools between the columns lie flat and still and hold the gold sky upside down, and a single leaf turns slowly on the surface of one, and that is all the movement there is. Here and there an old gardener moves along the hedges with his shears, doing the last small tidying of the day. And the soft snip of the blades comes to you from between the columns, unhurried, patient. The same sound a gardener's made at evening for 1,000 years, and the smell of the clipped box and the watered earth rises warm and green into the cooling air, and somewhere among the far walks a caged bird, sings 3 notes and stops, and a slow fountain talks to itself over its stone lip, and the whole long roofed walk lies dim and gold and empty, made for strolling and now barely strolled, waiting out the last of the light in perfect ease. You could sit a while on the warm rim of one of the pools, as many a Roman did at just this hour, and simply look down the endless colonnade to where it dwindles into shadow. Column after column after column growing smaller and dimmer until they vanish into the blue, and let the counting of them, if you count them at all, slow your thoughts the way the sliding disc of gold slowed them in the round temple, one, and the next, each the same as the last, marching away into the quiet, and there is a great restfulness in ranks of identical things receding, in rows and rows of anything going gently out of sight. And rising above these walks, where the open ground gives way again to the packed streets, stands one more of the great works, and it is the strangest and the gentlest of them, a single tall column of white marble standing straight up into the evening sky, taller than the tallest of the buildings around it, and it is carved, from its base to its crown, with one continuous ribbon of pictures that winds up and around it, like the peel of an apple taken off in one long strip, a spiral story climbing round and round the whole great shaft, hundreds of feet of small carved figures, thousands of them, soldiers and rivers and ships and walls and horses and workmen, a whole long tale of a far campaign told in stone and wound up the column so that to read, you would have to walk round and round it with your head tipped back, climbing the story with your eyes, spiralling up into the sky, and no one is reading it now, and you need not read it either. You need only stand at its foot in the last of the sun, and let your gaze climb the slow spiral up and up to where the very top of the column catches the light and burns. Because up there, on the summit, stands a figure of gilded bronze, and the sun, low and red now in the west, has found it and set it alight, so that the whole city, whatever quarter you stand in, can look up and see that one high point of pure gold burning against the deepening blue, the last thing in all of Rome to hold the sun, a small steady flame of gilded metal floating impossibly high above the rooftopses. The streets below go into shadow, and that is the sign that the golden hour is ending, that gold catching only on the highest things now, on the summit of the column and the gilded roof tiles of the temples on the hill, and the tip of the turning post down in the empty racing valley, while everything lower has slipped into the long blue shade. And the shadows that were long a while ago are longer still, stretching right across the open ground, the shadow of every column thrown far and thin, the shadow of the great column itself lying across the rooftops like a fallen mast, and the warmth is going out of the stone under your hand, slowly, the way warmth goes out of everything at the end of a day. And the air has cooled another degree, and somewhere below a first faint thread of wood smoke drifts up as an evening fire is kindled. So we have made our slow round of the wonders, the round temple with its travelling disc of gold, the long empty racing ground raked smooth, the great oval arena cooling in its own shadow, the open fields and the colonnaded walks and the high carved column with its burning crown, and we have taken them all in their quiet hour, when they were emptiest and most themselves, and the mind has wandered happily among them the way a mind wanders best, without aim, from one vast calm shape to the next. resting on each a while and drifting on. And now the last of the true gold is lifting off the city, climbing the walls and the columns as the sun goes down, gathering itself up onto the very highest points, and then, gently, letting even those go. Stand a last moment on the open ground and watch the sun itself, huge and red and mild, settle down onto the low western hills across the river, sitting there swollen on the horizon, dimmed enough now that you can almost look at it, laying a last flat wash of rose and amber along the whole face of the city, catching the dust in the air and turning it to soft gold haze between the buildings, so that the far parts of Rome go dreamlike and blurred and rose-coloured, hill behind hill fading paler into the haze, and the shadows have joined now into one great blue shade filling the streets, and the warmth is nearly gone, and the swifts wheel and cry high overhead, and the marble all around you, that blazed white at noon and glowed gold an hour past, has cooled to the soft grey rose of the evening, holding only the memory of the day's warmth in its deep stone. And you can feel the whole vast city, in this moment, letting its breath out, the long slow exhale of a day's end, the heat lifting, the light softening, the hard, bright edges of everything going gentle and dim, and there is a loosening in it, a settling that your own body knows and answers, your shoulders lowering, your breath going slow, your eyes growing heavy in the fading light. The sun sinks lower and lower until only its red upper rim rests on the far hills, and then that too slides down and is gone, and the gold goes out of the sky and leaves it a deep, clear, luminous rose, high and wide and calm above the darkening roofs, and the first faint coolness of the coming night moves through the streets, and far off, from somewhere among the hills, comes the small clear sound of the very first evening lamp being carried to the very first evening window, and the long gold afternoon is over, and the blue hour is coming back to gather the city in. And the red sun slips at last behind the western hills, and with it the whole quality of the light changes, softens, cools, the way a voice drops low when a room is settling towards sleep, and the long honey shadows that reached all afternoon across the marble now let go of their edges, and spread and pool and rise up out of the hollows between the buildings until the streets are full to the brim with the blue of evening, that particular deep and gentle blue that the day pours into a city as it leaves it. And this is the blue hour come round again, the same soft dusk that met us far back before the dawn on the cool side of the walls, arriving now from the other direction, closing the day the way a hand closes gently over a small warm thing to keep it, and there is no need to do anything about it but let it come. High over the packed red rooftops the swifts have come out to feed in the cooling air, the small dark sickle-winged birds that spend the long summer of this city screaming their thin happy screams and wheeling in great loose loops against the fading sky, hundreds of them, thousands, turning all together and then scattering and gathering again, chasing the last of the day's insects up, where the light still lingers gold and rose above the streets that have already gone to shadow. And if you stand still in a courtyard now and simply tip your head back and watch them, the way children in this city have always watched them, you will feel the whole day tilting quietly over its own edge and beginning, unhurried, to fall toward night. And down in the streets, as the light fails, a sound returns that has been gone since before dawn, low and far off and not at all unpleasant, the sound of wheels. All through the bright hours the great city forbids them, all through the day no cart may roll upon these stones, and so the daytime streets belong to feet and to voices and to the trickle of water and nothing heavier, but the law that empties the roads by day fills them again by night, and now, as the blue comes down, the ox carts and the mule carts and the hand carts that have waited all afternoon outside the gates come easing in through the arches one behind another, and their wooden wheels take up their soft grinding rumble on the paving, a deep and drowsy sound, rounded by distance, rolling in under everything else like the low note under a long chord. The carts bringing in the stone and the timber and the wine jars and the sacks of grain, and all the heavy freight that the daylight city has too crowded and too orderly to carry, so that the streets that spent the day as a place for people become, by night, the veins through which the city feeds itself, and the creak and groan of the axles and the slow patient clop of hooves and the calling of the drivers to their beasts drift up between the tall, dark apartment blocks and settle over the neighbourhoods like a lullaby that the city sings to itself, the sound of 1,000,000 people being quietly provided for while they turn toward their suppers and their beds. Let that low rumble be the floor under this whole hour, present but never near, a thing you notice the way you notice your own breathing only when you go looking for it, and then let it fall back into the general softness of the dusk. And now, while the light still holds enough gold to climb by, let us go up out of the streets, and on to one of the low green hills that rise in the middle of the city, the Hill of Palaces, the Hill of the Great Houses, where the very wealthy and the very powerful have set their homes high above the smoke and the noise to catch the evening breeze. And the climb is gentle, and the path is paved and lined with cypress trees going black against the last of the sky, and as we rise the sounds of the streets thin out below us and the air grows sweeter, carrying the green smell of watered gardens and the resin smell of the cypress, and from somewhere among the walls above, the first faint thread of wood smoke from a kitchen fire being fed for the evening meal. Up here the houses turn their backs to the street and their faces inward, and behind their plain high walls they open into courtyards, one leading into another, courtyards with pools of still water in the centre of them holding the last coloured light of the sky. Courtyards with clipped box hedges laid out in neat green patterns and rose beds and little fountains that murmur softly to themselves in the gathering dark. And the marble columns that ring these gardens are going the colour of dusk now, that soft violet grey that white stone takes on when the sun has left it, and the water in the fountains slides over its lip and falls, and catches whatever light is left and gives it back broken into 100 moving pieces, and the whole hilltop of gardens seems to hold its breath in the blue air, cooling, quieting, waiting for the lamps. And then, from up here, with the whole enormous city spread out below us in the dusk, comes the thing that is worth the climb, the thing that no one who has ever seen it forgets, because as the daylight drains away and the deep blue rises and the details of the streets go soft and dim, one by one, and then by tens, and then by hundreds and by thousands, the lamps of the city begin to come alight. A single point of amber kindles somewhere down in the shadowed streets, a lamp lit in a doorway, small and warm and alone, and then another beside it, and another across the way. And then a whole street seems to catch at once as the lamplighters go their rounds, and the shopkeepers set their lights in the windows, and the families touch flame to the little clay lamps on their tables, and the cooking fires flush orange in 1,000 courtyards, and the great houses on the hills light their lamps in their colonnades until the columns stand in rows of soft gold. And the taverns throw their doorways open in squares of warm light onto the darkening lanes, and it spreads, this kindling, it runs out across the whole vast bowl of the city like a slow tide of gold coming in, filling the hollows first and then climbing the 7 hills, until the entire city that lay grey and blue a moment ago lies glittering below you. 10,000 small warm lights, and then 10,000 more, uncountable, each one a home, each one a family gathering in from the day, each one a small act of ordinary human warmth against the coming dark, and it looks, from up here in the cool of the garden hill, exactly like a map of the world lighting up, exactly like the stars deciding to come down and settle on the earth in the shape of a city, and the great river that curls through the middle of it all catches the light of the lamps along both its banks, and lies there in the dusk like a dark ribbon sewn with gold, and above it the last of the daylight sky goes from rose to lavender to the first deep sapphire of the night, and low in the east, over the far dark hills beyond the walls, a great round moon is beginning to lift itself clear of the horizon, huge and pale and soft-edged in the evening haze, climbing slowly into the deepening blue to take up its long watch over the sleeping city, laying down across the 7 hills and the winding river a second, cooler silver light to lie gently over the gold of the lamps, so that the whole city is lit now by two kindnesses at once. The warm amber breathing up from below, and the pale silver drifting down from above, and the whole thing, the lit city and the darkening sky and the shining river between them and the wide moon rising over it all, is so quiet and so warm and so entirely at peace that you could stand at this parapet forever and never want a single thing to change. Rest here a while, high on the garden hill, with the cool air on your face and the whole glittering city breathing below you, and let your eyes wander down over all those small kind lights, and know that behind every one of them, tonight, someone is doing what you are doing, laying the day down, softening, settling in, letting go. And now let us go down, gently, off the hill and back into the warm streets, because the whole city is turning toward its evening meal, and there is no better place to be at dusk than at a table with the food coming and the lamps lit and the day safely behind. And this city eats its evening in two ways, high and low, grand and simple, and both of them are good, and both of them are made for drowsiness, and we may drift softly between the one and the other the way you drift between two easy thoughts on the edge of sleep. Step first then into one of the great houses on the hill, in through a doorway where a lamp burns in a niche, down a short passage, and out into the heart of the home, the dining room that opens onto its own private garden. And here the evening meal is not a thing rushed through, but a thing settled into, unhurried, ceremonial kind. For the Romans do not sit up straight at their supper the way later ages will. They recline. They lie down to eat, propped on their left elbows on broad low couches, spread with cushions and soft coverlets. 3 couches drawn up around a low table in a gentle horseshoe. So that to take the evening meal in this city is quite literally to lie down, to stretch out full length among cushions in the lamplight with people you are fond of, and let the food and the talk come to you. And if that is not the most civilized arrangement for an evening that any people ever devised, then it is very close, and it is certainly the most soporific, and we could learn something from it, you and I, on a night like this. The lamps here are many and low, bronze lamps on tall stands and little clay lamps clustered on the table, each with its small steady flame, and the light they throw is gold and soft, and moves very slightly, breathing, so that the painted walls with their garden scenes and their far blue distances seem to stir and deepen in the dusk, and the doors stand open to the real garden beyond, where a fountain talks quietly to itself in the dark, and the smell of watered roses and jasmine drifts in on the cool air to mingle with the smell of the food. And the food comes slowly, in small courses, in no hurry at all. First the light things, the eggs and the olives and the little salt fish and the fresh cheese and the raw green things dressed with oil. And there is honeyed wine cut with cool water in it, and then, when those are cleared and the talk has warmed, the main things come. The fish baked whole with herbs, the roast fowl, the good bread torn warm from the loaf, the vegetables from the garden simmered soft, everything seasoned with that dark salt-sharp fish sauce the Romans love, and with pepper carried half across the world, and it is eaten slowly, with the fingers reclining between long easy stretches of talk and quiet, and the lamplight lies gold on the faces and on the wine and on the water beading the cups, and somewhere in the garden or a soft corner of the room a single stringed instrument is being played very quietly, not for anyone's attention, just a low unhurried melody threading through the murmur of the voices, and outside the open doors the dusk goes on deepening blue to indigo, and the first star hangs over the black shape of the cypress trees, and the meal drifts on with no clock upon it. Course easing into course, the talk easing into laughter, and then into companionable silence, and then into talk again, and the honeyed wine slows the blood, and the reclining eases the limbs and eyelids grow heavy in the lamplight, and this warm-lit lingering is how the great houses of the city let the day go, lying down among cushions with the fountain playing in the dark garden, and the food coming slowly, and the good company near. And there is nothing in it to keep anyone awake, and everything to send them softly under. Lie in that a while, in the low gold light of the great house, propped easy among the cushions with the fountain murmuring and the music threading low, and the warm food settling, and the whole long day gone soft behind you. And then let us slip back out, down off the hill, into the ordinary streets, because the humble supper of this city is every bit as warm as the grand one, and there is a particular sweetness in it that the palaces do not have. Most of the 1,000,000 people who live inside these walls live packed high in the tall apartment blocks, floor above floor, and in those upper rooms there are no private kitchens and no dining gardens, only small close quarters where a fire is a danger and a luxury, and so the ordinary people of the city do not cook their suppers at home at all. They go down into the street to eat, and every neighbourhood has its little eating houses and wine shops on the ground floors, its counters open to the lane with great round jars set into the marble and warm food kept ready in them, and as the dusk comes down these places fill and warm and glow. And to walk the streets now is to pass one lit doorway after another spilling amber light, and the smell of food, and the good low roar of ordinary people at their ease. Step into one of them, a small warm crowded room off a narrow lane, lamplight and firelight in it, the walls painted cheaply and cheerfully, benches and small tables crowded close, and it is full of the working people of the city come down from their high rooms to eat and talk after the day, the porters and the potters and the weavers and the dockmen and the shopkeepers and the water carriers, sitting elbow to elbow with their bowls and their cups of rough cheap wine, and the noise of it is not the noise of a crowd that presses, it is the noise of a crowd that welcomes, a warm broad murmur of 100 easy conversations, the clink of cups, a burst of laughter from a corner, someone calling for more bread, the cook working at his warm jars behind the counter and passing out bowls of hot stew and beans and boiled grain and sausage and whatever is good tonight, and the food is simple and plentiful and hot, and it is exactly what a tired body wants at the end of a long day, and the wine is thin and sour and cut with water, but it does its gentle work all the same, loosening the shoulders, warming the talk. And the lamps hang smoking softly from the low ceiling, and the light is orange and close and kind, and here, packed in among strangers who are half of them friends, the ordinary 1,000,000 of this city let their day go too, not reclining among cushions, but shoulder to shoulder on a worn bench, with a hot bowl in their hands, and the whole day's work behind them, and it is, in its own crowded homely way, every bit as restful as the palace on the hill, because rest is not a thing that only wealth can buy. Rest is what comes when the work is done, and the belly is full, and the light is warm, and there is nowhere left you have to be. And in this little lamplit room off the lane that has come to everyone at once, sit in that warmth a while, the low good roar of the eating house around you, the hot bowl, the smoking lamp, the day's work done, and feel how the same soft heaviness is settling here on the worn bench, has settled back among the cushions of the great house, the same slow closing of the day, reaching high and low across the whole city at the very same hour, and out beyond the lit doorway the dusk has gone deeper still while we ate, and the streets that were blue are going now to a soft charcoal dark, stitched everywhere with the amber of the lamps, and the last coloured light has drained from the sky above the rooftops, gold gone to rose, and rose gone to a deep clear sapphire, and one by one the stars are pricking out over the city, faint at first and then certain, and it is worth stepping back out into the lane now, into the cool of the full evening, to feel how the great machine of the daylight city has quietly and completely shut itself down. For the temples that stood bright and busy in the afternoon sun, that we walked among in the golden hour with their marble going honey warm, have gone dark now and still, their business done for the day, and if you pass one in the dusk, you will see it standing quiet and shadowed against the last of the sky, its great doors closing or closed. The crowds that thronged its steps gone home to their suppers, and within where the incense burned blue and fragrant all day, only a last thread of that sweet smoke still hangs and fades on the cooling air, and here and there a single lamp is left burning low before an altar, a small faithful point of gold in the vast dark space, keeping its little watch through the night. And in the small round temple in the hollow of the old marketplace, the ever-burning hearth fire is banked low and tended. the pale grave young woman in her white bands and long white robe, feeding it just enough to keep its embers alive through the dark hours, the way she and those before her have kept it alive without break for longer than anyone can remember. A small, steady heartbeat of flame at the very centre of the sleeping city, and everything around it goes quiet, the smoke fading, the doors closing, the great stone temples cooling in the dark. The day's worship laid down as gently as everything else is being laid down tonight. And under all of it, threading through the closing dark, running on and on as it has run all day and will run all night, is the water, for the fountains of this city never stop, they cannot stop. The great aqueducts stride in from the distant hills on their tall rows of arches and pour their rivers of cool mountain water down into the city day and night, without pause or purpose beyond the giving of it. And so at every corner and in every little square the public fountains keep running softly in the dark, spilling and trickling and filling their stone basins to overflowing and spilling again, talking their quiet endless water talk to the empty lanes. And now, in the evening, a slight girl in an undyed linen tunic with her dark hair tied back in a cloth comes to one of them as the last errand of her day, and sets her shallow clay jar under the falling water and stands patient in the lamplight, while it fills, watching the water climb, her face soft and tired and calm in the amber glow, and when the jar is full she settles it on her shoulder with the ease of long practice, and turns and carries it home up the dark stairs of one of the tall houses, the water for the morning drawn and safe, and the fountain runs on behind her into the empty night, spilling and trickling to no one, patient, faithful, endless, the cool sound of it laid over the whole neighbourhood like a blanket. And the bakers, who were the first awake of anyone in this city, who had their ovens glowing orange before the dawn even thought of coming, are the first now to lie down, their day's bread long since baked and sold and eaten, their great ovens cooling. The stocky flour-dusted men banking the last of their fires and shuttering their shops and climbing the stairs to sleep, because they must be up again in the dark before the dark is over, and so the day of the city folds shut at both its ends upon the same warm smell of bread, kindled before dawn and going quiet at dusk, and everything between has been carried on that, on bread and on water and on light, the three quiet things that never left us all the long day through. Rest on that a while, the fountains running softly to no one in the dark, the last temple lamp burning low, the ovens cooling, the girl carrying her full jar up the dark stair, the whole vast city easing itself down street by street and hill by hill into the blue evening. And now the dusk is complete, the sapphire overhead gone deep and clear and studded thick with stars, the last stain of daylight gone from even the western rim of the sky, and from any high place in the city the view is the one we climbed the garden hill for, the whole enormous bowl of Rome spread out glittering warm below in the dark. 10,000 and 10,000 small amber lamps burning steady across the 7 hills, the cooking fires flushing orange in the courtyards, the taverns glowing gold along the lanes, the great houses lit in their colonnades, the dark river winding through it all sown with the doubled light of the lamps along its banks, and over the whole of it the low steady rumble of the night carts rolling in, through the streets, and under that the endless soft talk of the fountains, and under that the vast warm silence of 1,000,000 people turning, all together, unhurried, toward their rest. And the swifts have gone to their high roosts under the eaves, and the birds are quiet, and the stars are bright, and the air is cool and sweet, and the day, the whole long golden day we walked through from the dark before dawn, has come at last to its warm and glowing dusk. Everything lit, everything fed, everything settling. The enormous eternal city glowing gently below like a sky brought down to earth, beginning now, everywhere at once, in every lamplit room and every shadowed lane and every quiet garden, softly and without any hurry at all, to sleep. And so the last of the gold goes out of the sky, not suddenly, never suddenly, but the way a coal loses its glow when no one is tending it, the rose along the western hills cooling to violet, and the violet deepening to a soft brimming sapphire that is the truest colour this whole night has, and the first stars, which have been there all along waiting behind the daylight, come out one and then a handful, and then more than anyone could ever count, standing very still over the 7 hills. And the enormous city, which has been settling since dusk the way a great animal settles, folding its legs beneath it a limb at a time, lets the last of its daylight murmur run down to almost nothing, and we walk on into the deep part of the night at the only pace there has ever been, slower than a stroll, slow as breathing, slow as the water going by under the bridges, because there is nowhere left to arrive and no hour left to keep but this one. Listen for a moment to how the sound of the city has changed. All through the golden afternoon and the lamplit supper of the evening there was a low-woven hum under everything, 10,000 small human sounds braided together until they became a single warm noise. The way the sea is really only a great many small waves agreeing, and now, hour by hour, thread by thread, that hum is being unwound and laid down, a shutter closing here, a last low laugh from a doorway there, a door pulled to, a bolt slid home. A mother's voice softening over a child until even that goes quiet, and what is left when the weave comes apart is not silence exactly, because a city of 1 million people is never quite silent, but something better than silence, the sound of a place at rest, which is made of only a very few clear notes now, each one standing alone in the dark where in the daytime it would have been lost. The trickle of running water, the small clop and creak of a cart somewhere off among the lanes, the soft scuff of a single pair of sandals on stone, and, threading through all of it, faint as a thought, the wind moving over all those tiled roofs at once, a long low sound like the city itself breathing slow and even in its sleep. Down in the streets now the wheels are turning again. All the long bright day they were forbidden. You remember, the carts and the wagons and the ox-drawn drays banned from the paving stones while the sun was up, so that 1 million people on foot could have their city to themselves, and all day the wheeled traffic waited outside the gates and in the yards, patient as everything is patient here, and now, in the dark, it is let back in, and the great slow business of feeding and clearing and carrying that a city of 1 million can only do while its people sleep begins its gentle night shift under the moon. A cart comes down a moonlit street ahead of us, an ox leaning quietly into the yoke with that enormous unhurried patience oxen have, its breath smoking a little in the cool. The driver a dark shape hunched half asleep on the boards with the reins loose in his hands, trusting the animal to know the way it has always known. And the wheels turn on the worn stone with a sound that is somehow the most restful sound in the whole night, a soft grinding rumble that rises as the cart comes near and crests and then falls away again down the long straight street, fading, until you cannot tell any more whether the cart has turned a corner or whether you have simply stopped hearing it, and either way it does not matter, because another will come, and another all night, the slow blood of the city moving quietly in its veins while the city itself lies still. Follow one for a little while, at a distance, just for the company of it. It carries blocks of stone, perhaps, cut in the yards along the river and going up to some half-built portico where tomorrow the masons will find them waiting, or amphorae of wine and oil packed upright in straw, or the ordinary night's cargo of a hungry city, sacks of grain and baskets of greens and crates of the fish that came up cold from the sea road at dusk, all of it moving now, in the dark, gently, so that when the sun comes up the markets will simply be full, as if by a kindness, as if the city fed itself in its sleep. And ahead of the cart, along the wall of a shuttered shop, comes swinging a small warm point of amber light, low, at about the height of a man's knee, throwing a moving pool of gold onto the stones, and we know that light, we have been half waiting for it all through the dark, because it belongs to the watchman. He is one of the vigiles, the night watch of the city, the men who walk the wards from dusk to dawn while everyone else sleeps, and this one is exactly the sort of man you would want walking past your door in the small hours, a solid, calm, unhurried man of about 50, broad in the shoulder and a little heavy now, in the way of a man who has walked a great many miles and is in no rush to walk them fast, his olive skin weathered dark, his short dark hair gone grey at the temples, his brown eyes steady and mild and a little tired in the lantern glow, wearing a plain belted knee-length tunic the colour of dried earth and heavy hobnailed sandals that ought to be loud on the stone but somehow are not. Because a man who has done this for 30 years learns to set his feet down softly, out of courtesy to the sleeping, and he carries in one hand a small horn lantern, just a stub of candle behind a pane of scraped horn that lets the light through soft and yellow and warm, and that little lantern throws its pool of gold around his feet and moves with him, so that he walks always in the centre of a small travelling circle of light, and everything just beyond it is blue and silver and still. Watch him a while. There is nothing to fear in him, and nothing for him to fear, which is the whole point of him. His rounds are not a hunt, they are a tending. He stops at a baker's door, the same sort of baker we passed in the dark before this long day began, and he does not knock, he only leans close and looks and listens. Because his chief work in the night is fire. Fire being the one thing a city built this close and this tall truly dreads, and he is making sure the ovens are banked. The great orange mouths that roared before dawn, now damped down to a low sleeping glow behind their iron doors, the coals raked and covered, the wood stacked well back, and he sees that the baker, that stocky good man with the flour still in the creases of his arms, has done it all properly as he does every night, and the watchman nods to himself in the dark, satisfied, and moves on. He stops beneath a shrine at a crossroads where a little oil lamp burns in a niche before the small painted gods of that neighbourhood, and he tips a few drops from a flask into the lamp so it will not gutter out before morning, a tiny kindness that no one will ever see, keeping one more small light alive along the street through the night, and moves on. He tries a door that should be barred, and finds it barred. He looks up at a high window, where a lamp still burns and watches until he sees it move, someone awake and well, a nursing mother perhaps, or an old man who does not sleep easily, or a scholar with his scrolls, and he lets it be, and moves on, his pool of amber light sliding along the base of the tall brick apartment houses. The insulae, 6 stories of sleeping families stacked one above another into the dark, their shutters closed, their flower pots black shapes on the sills, a line of washing forgotten on a balcony hanging perfectly still in the windless night. And every soul behind every one of those shutters is asleep, or nearly, and the watchman walks below them all like a shepherd walking the edge of a flock in the dark, counting nothing, only being there, and that is enough, that has always been enough. Let him go on around his corner now, his light shrinking to a spark and then to nothing, and know that he is still there, just out of sight all night, walking, and that whether you can see him or not, the light is still moving gently through the lanes, tending the small fires, keeping the watch, so that you do not have to. Come up out of the lanes now, quietly, the way you might rise up through the surface of a dream, into the wide open places where the moon has the whole floor to itself. Here is the Forum, the great civic heart where the whole day began for us in the warm gold of morning, where the law courts creaked open, and the clients made their calls, and the fountains ran bright, and the incense climbed off the round temple into the new sun, and look at it now, at midnight, emptied of every one of them, a long pale marble hollow lying open to the sky, and flooded to the brim with moonlight, so full of that cool silver light that it seems almost to be under water. The tall columns of the basilicas standing in ranks like something at the bottom of a still bright sea, their shadows laid across the worn paving in long clean bars, the gilded statues on their plinths gone the colour of pewter and old silver in the moon, each one alone with itself, the speaker's platform empty, the steps empty, the whole great room of the state standing open and silent and grand and completely at peace, keeping nothing but the moon. And there, at the low round temple of the hearth, one thing is still awake. One thing that is always awake, the small living fire of the city, and beside it, tending it as it has been tended for centuries without ever once being allowed to go out, sits the priestess in her long white robe and veil, a serene young woman with a pale, composed face and her dark hair bound up under bands of white wool, and she feeds the low flame a little dry wood, unhurried. Her face gold on one side from the fire, and silver on the other from the moon. And the flame catches and settles and burns on, small and steady and warm, the one waking light in the sleeping heart of the city. The ember the whole vast place keeps alive through the night, the way a person keeps one small hope alight through a long dark, and she will sit with it until another comes to take her place before dawn, and it will not go out, it has not gone out, it is not going to go out tonight, and there is something in that, something you can lay your head against, the knowledge that while you sleep the fire is kept. Cross the moonlit square and go on, past the temples with their doors drawn shut and their day's incense faded to the faintest ghost of sweetness in the cool air, the priests gone to their beds, the offerings quiet on the cold altars, and come to the low broad round temple that holds the whole sky in its roof, the one with the single great open eye at the very top of its dome, and step in under the vast dark curve of it. All day a coin of sunlight moved slowly across the marble floor and up the curved wall as the sun wheeled over, a slow bright clock made of nothing but light, and now the sun is long down and the disk that lies on the floor is smaller and cooler and paler, a soft round pool of moonlight fallen straight down through that open eye 100 feet above, resting on the polished stone, and around it the great domed room is nothing but deep, calm, breathing shadow, so quiet you can hear the small sound of the night air moving through the eye overhead, and if you stand at the edge of that moon pool and look up, you can see through the round opening a scatter of real stars crossing slowly, framed, held, offered, the temple lifting one small circle of the endless sky and giving it to you to look at, and the disk of pale light lies there on the floor as patient as everything else in this city, tracking the moon across the dark the way it tracked the sun, and it asks nothing of you, and neither does the night. Out again, and up along the quiet streets to where the great oval arena stands, the huge 4-tiered ring of pale stone arches that we walked around in the honeyed light of the afternoon, and see how the dark has changed it, how the moon standing now behind its far rim turns the whole enormous shape to a single black silhouette, tier on tier of empty arches, hundreds of them, each one a doorway onto nothing but shadow, the great bowl of it holding only darkness and a little cool air, and the memory of its own daytime scale, and it is not fearsome, standing there asleep, only vast and quiet and strangely gentle, an immense stone thing at rest, its arches like the arches of a bridge over a river of dark, and an owl, perhaps, slips out of one high opening on soft wings and drifts across the face of the moon and is gone, and the arena keeps on standing, huge and black and profoundly asleep, as it will keep on standing. We somehow feel even now, long after the city around it has changed past all recognizing, patient as stone is patient, dreaming its stone dream in the moonlight while the small warm lives it was built to overawe sleep on, unbothered, in their thousands of little rooms below. And down at last, always down, because water runs downhill, and so in the end does a night, down through the lanes toward the river, past the corner fountain where in the bright of the day the slight girl with her dark hair tied back in a cloth balanced her shallow terracotta jar on her shoulder and caught the aqueduct water bright and cold. And the fountain is running still. Of course it is. It has never once stopped, running now to nobody at all, its thin bright thread of water falling and falling into the worn stone basin and brimming over and finding the channel and running away down the gutter to the river, the same clean cold water that walked into the city all day long on the high shoulders of the aqueducts. The great striding arched bridges that bring the mountain's water in from 30 and 40 miles away and pour it out day and night, night and day, without asking, without stopping, into 1,000 fountains just like this one. So that at this very moment, in the deep middle of the night, all across the 7 sleeping hills, in every empty square and every dark little crossroads, the fountains are running on and on to nobody, A whole city of quietly falling water singing its small song into the dark with no one awake to hear it. And that too is something you can rest your whole weight on, the water that does not stop, the sound that does not end. The city that keeps on being cool and clean and cared for, even in its deepest sleep. Follow the water down to where the wide, slow river lies, the green-brown Tiber curling through the middle of everything in its long, lazy S. And it is not green-brown now. It is black and silver and full of stars. The whole night sky come down to lie on the moving water and be carried, broken into 10,000 shivering points of light that slide along together on the current and regather and slide on under the arches of the old stone bridges, past the dark warehouses and the sleeping wharves where the barges lie tied up and rocking just slightly, past the great broken hill of old oil jars gone soft and grey in the moonlight, on and on toward the sea it has been walking toward since long before there was any city here to walk through. The river that carries the reflected stars downstream all night and never keeps a single one, and lean on the parapet of a bridge a while and watch them go. The stars going by on the black water below you, and the same stars standing still in the sky above you. And let your thoughts go with the ones on the water, downstream, slow, unhurried, out toward the wide dark sea. And now draw it all together, gently, the way you would gather a blanket up over someone, because the night has laid its whole self out for you, and it is time to fold it closed. Water still running, in every fountain, to nobody, all night. Lamps still lit, in the little roadside shrines, in the one high window of someone kindly awake, in the horn lantern moving softly through the lanes. The small fire still tended in the round temple in the heart of the sleeping city, kept alive by patient hands so that it will be there in the morning. The walls still standing all the way around, the long brick ring with its towers and its arched gates, keeping their old quiet watch over 1 million people lying asleep inside them, and above one of those gates. The very same tall arched gate we came in by in the blue dark before this long day began. One small warm oil lamp still burns in its iron bracket, glowing gold against the deep blue night, exactly as it was burning when we arrived, the little light left lit along the wall of a sleeping city. The light we said we would leave for you and have left, burning steady, marking the place, saying without words that the city is here, and holding, and will still be here in the morning. And here at the very end of the night, let me turn it, softly, one last time, from the city onto you, because everything I have shown you tonight, all of it, the golden forum and the steaming baths and the honey-coloured monuments, and the 10,000 kindled lamps, and the great river of stars, all of it was only ever the long way round to this one quiet thing. Empires rise along the hills like the morning and set again like the evening. This was the greatest city the world had yet built. 1 million souls at the very height of their glory. Certain it would stand forever, and even it grew quiet in the end. Even its fountains fell still for a time, and its great arena stood empty, and its walls came down and went back, some of them, to being only stone. Cities rise and cities fall, and even the eternal ones close their eyes at last. But there is one city that never falls, one kingdom whose walls never come down, and whose gates stand open all night, with no watchman needed and no toll asked at the door, and you are crossing into it right now, this very moment, without papers, without a coin, without so much as a word. Welcomed the way every tired traveller is welcomed at the end of a very long day, and it is the gentle country of sleep, and it has been waiting for you patiently all through this night, the way the city waited for the dawn. So let the city keep itself now, because it knows how. It has kept 1 million people asleep every single night for longer than anyone can remember. And it does not need you awake for any part of it. It does not need you to keep the fire, there are patient hands for that. It does not need you to walk the watch, the lantern is already moving through the lanes. It does not need you to tend the fountains, or bar the doors, or mind the banked ovens, or carry the grain up from the river. All of it is being done, softly, in the dark, by hands that have done it for 1,000 years, and will do it whether you watch or not. So you may set the whole enormous city down now, the way you would set down a lamp you no longer need to carry, and close your eyes, because morning is already coming. It is already out there, morning, riding slowly toward you from the east, the way everything in this whole night has come, unhurried and certain and in no rush at all, and it will touch the far hills first, the ones beyond the walls, laying the first thin gold along their tops, and then it will come down and touch the river and set the water shining. And then it will find the tops of the walls and warm the old brick, and then it will slip down over the roofs, one red-tiled roof and then 1,000, and it will find the fountains still running and turn their falling water to light, and it will reach in under the one small lamp above the gate and quietly outshine it at last, and in its own good and gentle time. Long after you have stopped waiting for it, it will come to your window too. But not yet, not for a long, long while yet, and there is nothing between now and then, nothing in all the miles of the dark that the city needs you awake for. So let it go, all of it, gently, good night to the gate in the wall, and its one small lamp keeping its patient light. Good night to the great forum lying full of moonlight, and to the small fire kept warm in its heart. Good night to the baths gone cool and dark and still, their pools holding the moon where the steam used to rise. Good night to the round temple with the open eye and its single disk of moonlight resting on the floor. Good night to the great arena standing black and huge, and asleep on its hill, dreaming its long stone dream. Good night to the tall crowded houses of the lanes, and every sleeping family stacked warm within them, and the washing hanging still on the dark balconies. Good night to the good baker and his banked and glowing ovens, and to the slight water girl asleep with the day's work done, and to the calm grey templed watchman, still walking his slow rounds with his little pool of amber light, keeping us all. Good night to the fountains running on and on to nobody across the 7 quiet hills, and to the aqueducts striding in from the dark hills with their cool cargo of mountain water. Good night to the black and silver river carrying its cargo of stars down toward the sea, and to the stars themselves, standing still and bright over the roof above your head at this very moment. The very same stars that stood over that city so long ago. Far off, at the edge of hearing now, the last of the night carts is rolling away down some long moonlit street, its wheels turning soft on the worn stone, the sound rising just a little and then falling, growing fainter, and fainter, slower, softer, until you honestly cannot tell any more whether you still hear the wheels or only remember them, and beneath it, quieter still and never stopping, the thin bright thread of a fountain goes on falling somewhere in the dark, falling and falling into its worn stone basin, the last clear sound in all the sleeping city, and it too grows softer as you sink, and softer, until it is less a sound now than the memory of water, less than that. Only the idea of something cool and gentle running on in the dark, keeping the city while the city keeps you. Let it fade. It knows the way. The fire is tended, the lamp is lit, the water is running, the walls are standing, the watch is kept. There is nothing left for you to do but the one easy thing, the thing the whole night has been carrying you gently toward, and there is all the time in the world for it, and no toll at the door. Sleep now. The city will keep. Good night.